The winter of 1958 was a cruel one, and the night my own father threw me out, it felt colder than ever. Lin Xiao, he said, from today on, you're no longer part of this family. The words came out of him flat and frozen, like wind off a January field, and they hit me so hard my ears rang. We were sitting under the dim yellow light of a kerosene lamp, and all around the table were faces I knew by heart, and suddenly didn't recognize at all. My older brother, Dajuan, wore a smirk he didn't bother to hide. His wife, Suohua, stood with her arms folded and her chin up, sour as a crabapple, proud of herself like a rooster that just won a fight. And my parents, they couldn't meet my eyes, but there was no give in them either. They'd already decided. In the middle of the table sat a pot of red-braised pork, steam curling off it, smelling like heaven. That meat had come from a litter of wild boar piglets I'd spotted on a cliffside a few days back, using my eyes. And now the smell of it felt like a slap. "Dad," I said, my voice scraping out of a dry throat. "Mom, what? A whole year?" That's what I kept thinking. A whole year. A year ago I'd fallen off a cliff, and when I came back from it, something in my eyes had changed. I could track a bird in flight 100 yards out. I could see a beast hiding deep in the brush. I could tell you which patch of ground had valuable medicine root buried under it. I called it my hawk eye, and I never told a soul how it worked. That one ability had taken us from the poorest household in the village to the family everybody envied. Meat at every meal, new clothes on every back. And who'd done that for them? Me, Lin Xiao. And now they were tossing me out like a sack of trash. Why? Suehua's voice climbed into a screech, spit flying. You've got the nerve to ask why? Every hunt this past year, it was your brother out there risking his neck wrestling with wild animals. It was your father setting traps on his old bones. And you? You walked along behind, pointing your finger, running your mouth. This way, that way, and then came home and sat there like a lord, stuffing yourself. You're not embarrassed. Dajuan grunted hard and backed her up. She's right. You're a lazy bag of bones who's good for nothing but talk. This family doesn't feed freeloaders. The little bit you did wasn't worth the meat you ate. Freeloader. Lazy bones. My whole body shook. My fists clenched so tight my nails bit into my palms. Without me calling the targets, they'd never have found a single animal. There was an old hunter who lived nearby, famous for miles around, with skills nobody could match. And you know what good unbeatable hunting skills are when you can't find anything to hunt? None. No good at all. I'd never said any of that. I'd figured we were family, and family doesn't keep a ledger. I gave quietly and trusted they'd remember. I was wrong. Badly wrong. Put enough money on the table, and people get hungrier and uglier than anything in the mountains. I looked at my parents, hoping for one flicker of doubt. My mother just dropped her head and mumbled, "Xiao, your brother has a point. You can't live your whole life on a little luck, can you? Striking out on your own, getting some seasoning, it'll be good for you." My father slapped a hard, blackened corn bun down on the table. The final word. Enough. That bun is the last food this family gives you. There's an old place on the east end of the village, half falling down. You can live there. From now on, whether you live or die has nothing to do with us. He looked at me. Get out. That word, out, broke the last warm thing left in me. I didn't argue. When greed's got a person blind, words are wasted breath. So I reached out. Not for the bun. I left that insult sitting there, and I pulled off the new cotton coat I was wearing, the one my mother had so lovingly sewn me after we sold a bear hide. I threw it on the floor. "Here's your coat back," I said. Then I pulled off my good leather boots and dropped them too. "And your shoes." Barefoot, in a thin old shirt, with every one of them staring at me like I was filth, I walked out of the house I used to call home. It was colder in there now than any ice house. Behind me, Tsuehua spat. "Throwing a tantrum, are you? He won't last 3 days. He'll starve in that shack." The wind cut at my face like a knife. I didn't look back. I walked straight to the broken-down place on the east end, the one the villagers jokingly called the coffin house. And it earned the name. A leaning thatched hut, mud walls cracked open in a dozen places, wind whistling through every gap, the roof so thin I could lie down and count stars through the holes. I stumbled inside, hit by the smell of mold and rot and dust, and I slid down the cold earthen wall to the floor. Betrayed, thrown out, hungry, freezing. It all landed on me at once. And under it, something burned, a hatred so big it nearly cooked the sense right out of me. My eyes went red. I clenched my jaw till I tasted blood. "I swear to heaven," I said, What you did to me today, I'll pay back 100 times over. You showed me no mercy. Don't expect any from me. From this day on, Lin Xiao and the Lin family are done. And right then, at the exact second my mind was about to crack from the rage and the despair, my eyes flared with a burning pain. Like something was tearing its way out from the deepest part of me. The Hawkeye fired off on its own, harder than it ever had. The world didn't just get sharper and farther. The whole thing went edged and clear, like everything had turned into readable data. And then a voice rang through my skull. Cold, mechanical, and somehow the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. Host has severed the primary parasitic bloodline shackle. Mental independence achieved. Final activation conditions met. Divine Hunter King system awakening. 10%, 50%, 100%. System fully awakened. I sat there stunned, staring at the half-transparent panel of data that had bloomed inside my head. So the Hawkeye wasn't the whole thing. It was just a starter program. One piece of this Divine Hunter King system, not even fully switched on. And the final key to unlocking the rest of it had been cutting all ties with my own family. I almost laughed. A whole year of working myself to the bone for those people. And that loyalty had been the very thing holding the system down. The day they threw me out like garbage was the day I was reborn. This system will forge the host into the strongest Hunter King across all worlds. Hunt all things. Seize all resources. Rise to the summit. First full awakening detected. Issuing one beginner's gift package. Open now. The joy of it blew every dark cloud out of my chest. I didn't hesitate. Open it, I thought. Open it now. Package opened. Congratulations to the host. 1. Talent optimization. Hawkeye, enhanced. Range extended to 500 meters. Motion tracking improved. Mental drain reduced by half. 2. Passive skill, marksman, permanent. With any ranged weapon, you'll have absolute accuracy, instinctive aim like muscle memory, and the ability to predict the bullet's path. Every shot hits. Nothing wasted. 3. Starting storage, 100 cubic meters. A safe pocket dimension, controlled by thought, that keeps things fresh and stacks them neatly. 4. Beginner supplies. One Type 56 semi-automatic rifle with bayonet. 100 rounds of 7.62mm ammunition. 50 pounds of fine white flour. 50 pounds of rice. And 20 pounds of cured pork. 5. Body strengthening. Your body's reinforced across the board. Tremendous strength. Tremendous endurance. 6. A knowledge library. Skills and learning of every kind. It all flooded into my head at once, and I shook with excitement. The marksman skill was the real prize. It patched my biggest weakness. Before, all I had was the Hawkeye. I could see the prey, but my aim was nothing special. So half the time I just stood there grinding my teeth, calling targets for other people to shoot. Now I didn't need anybody. Now I was the hunter. I flexed my mind, and a slab of cured pork dropped into my hand. Heavy, real, the smell of it thick in the air. It was all true. I tore off a strip of the fat and crammed it in my mouth and chewed like a wild thing. God, it was good. After that humiliating black corn bun, it tasted like a feast. A few mouthfuls in, warmth spread through my belly and pushed back both the cold and the fear. I stood up and called the rifle into my hand, cold metal gleaming. The second my palm hit the stock, a strange certainty ran through me, like the gun wasn't a dead thing but an extension of my own arm. How to load it, how to sight it, how to fire. It was all just there, burned into me like instinct. I looked through a hole in the wall, out toward the pitch-black hills behind the house. Hawkeye enhanced. My sight cut straight through the dark, and everything within 500 meters came clear, a wild hare gnawing at a tree root, every twitch of its ears plain as day. And the marksman instinct told me that if I wanted to, I could put a round through that hare's skull right now, through this hole in the wall, without moving an inch. I smiled. There was something a little crazy in it, and something cold, and a whole lot of confidence. Hawkeye plus marksman. These hills were my hunting ground now. My treasury. And the Lin family? My eyes went sharp as a blade. You thought I was a useless mouth that only knew how to talk. You thought I'd starve in this shack without you. Good. Starting tomorrow, I'll let you watch the worthless one you threw out become something you can only look up at. But that night, all I could do was bed down in the broken hut and wait for morning. I woke at first light to wind knifing through the gaps in the thatch. The old me would have been half frozen by dawn. The new me hadn't slept a wink and felt nothing but power humming under my skin. My stomach growled. The cured pork was long gone. Time to visit my treasury. I called up the rifle, thumbed 10 rounds into the magazine smooth as if I'd done it 1,000 times, and slipped out the back, into the hills behind the village. Bare winter forest, silent, everything dead or hiding. The hardest season there is for an ordinary hunter. For me, it was paradise. Hawkeye on. The whole world changed. 500 meters in every direction, every detail laid bare. Grubs squirming under dead leaves, a squirrel curled in a hollow. Even the path the wind took through the treetops. 10 minutes in, I locked onto a little valley 300 meters out. There, head down, chewing grass roots under the snow, stood a fat, glossy roe deer. What the old-timers called the foolish roe, with no idea death had arrived. In the old days, spotting it 300 meters off would have been useless. No bow reaches that far. No time to set a trap. By the time my brother huffed his way over, the thing would be long gone. Not anymore. I drew a breath, didn't bother with cover, just stood there and raised the rifle. Marksman kicked in. The instant the stock touched my shoulder, man and gun became one thing. My breathing, my heartbeat, the mountain wind, all of it folded together. The deer's image swelled in my vision, an invisible red that's settling on its skull. In my mind, I'd already seen the round cut the air and punch through bone. No hesitation. The shot cracked across the silent hills. 300 meters off, the deer's head burst in a red mist. The big body shuddered twice and dropped, dead before it hit the ground. One shot, one kill. There wasn't any joy on my face, just a cold calm. This was only the start. I walked over, bled the deer out clean, and with a thought folded the whole 100-pound animal into the storage space, gone into thin air. Then I kept walking, deeper into the hills. Half an hour later, as the east went pale, I was standing at the edge of the village. And in my storage space, beside that roe deer, sat a 300-pound king boar, 5 fat pheasants, and 2 more hares. Enough to make every hunter in the village lose their mind. But I didn't pull it all out. That would have been too much, too strange. I took just 1 plump pheasant and 1 hare, looped a grass cord around them, and strolled toward my falling down shack on the east end, easy as you please. Morning smoke was rising from the chimneys. The early risers who saw me wore that look, contempt with a little glee underneath. Well, if it isn't the Lin family's 3rd son, kicked out, and still got the nerve to go up the mountain. With those skinny little arms? What's he gonna catch? Be lucky if a wolf doesn't drag him off. What's he carrying? A pheasant? A hare? Probably swiped it out of somebody's trap. I let it all wash past me, face still as a well. Then, passing one mud house just as broken down as the rest, I slowed. It was the home of the village widow. Her name was Bai Xiaozhu, and she'd had a hard road. Her husband had gone up the mountain hunting 2 winters back and been killed by a black bear, leaving her with 2 small children and a life even leaner than the Lins used to be. But I remembered something. Back when the whole village looked down on me, she was the one who'd smile at me, soft and kind, when we crossed paths on the road. Sometimes she'd quietly press a roasted sweet potato into my hand. The door creaked open. Out came Bai Xiaozhu, thin and pale, carrying a cracked wooden basin. She saw me and stopped short. Then her eyes caught the game in my hand and went wide with surprise. Lin Xiao, Sister Xiaozhu, I said, and my voice came out warm, nothing like the ice I'd used on my own family. I held out the fatter of the 2 pheasants. For the children. Build them up a little. She jumped back, waving both hands. I couldn't possibly. It's too dear. I can't take it. A single pheasant traded in town would fetch several pounds of grain. Half a month of food for her family. Take it, sister. I pushed it into her arms before she could keep refusing. You fed me plenty of sweet potatoes once. And I turned and walked off before she could argue. She stood there clutching that heavy bird, watching me go, and her eyes filled and brimmed over. Back at my own shack, I shut the busted door, the hinge nearly fell off, and got to work. I pulled the dressed roe deer out of the storage space, cut off the prime hind leg with the bayonet, and set it over a small fire. Then I got out rice and cured pork and started a pot of pork rice in a cracked clay jar. Soon the smell came up. Roasting meat so rich it was almost violent, twisted together with the smell of cooking rice, pouring out through every gap in those broken walls. In 1958, when every household was choking down coarse grain and wild greens, even a hint of grease in the air could get every kid in the village drooling. A smell like mine was a bomb dropped into a still pond. Whose house is that? Who's cooking meat? It smells incredible. Sounds like it's coming from the East End. The East End? Isn't that where that useless Lin Xiao is living? Where'd he get meat? One by one, drawn like they were sleepwalking, the villagers drifted toward my shack, craning their necks, pulling that maddening smell into their lungs. Meanwhile, in the Lin family's brick and tile house, the table was set with corn buns, a dish of salt pickles, and a small bowl of last night's leftover braised pork. They still had meat, but the mood was nothing like the night before. Dajuan gnawed a bun and said, careless, Dad, Mom, just watch. Without that brat underfoot pointing his finger, I'll go up alone today and bring back a boar twice the size. My father smoked his pipe, brows knit tight, drew in a long pull, and let it out slow. Dajuan, don't talk so big. This past year, you ever feel like our luck got, I don't know, a little too good to be natural? He wasn't a fool. The two of them used to go 10, 15 days without bagging anything worth carrying home. But ever since I'd taken that fall a year back and woken up, every trip, every time they listened to me, they came home loaded. He never said it out loud, but it nagged at him. Suehua couldn't stand that kind of talk. Dad, what do you mean luck? That's our Dajuan's blood and sweat, one blade and one shot at a time. Lin Xiao was a jinx. Look, we threw him out, and we're still eating just fine today. And right as she said it, that rich smell of meat came shoving into the room. Dajuan's nose twitched. His eyes lit up. Meat. That's roasting meat. Suehua smelled it too, sniffed hard, and curled her lip in envy. Must be the village chief firing up his stove again. The extravagance. Just then a half-grown neighbor kid ran past their door, hollering, you won't believe it. Lin Xiao's in his shack roasting meat. Smells so good people are drooling. What? All four of them froze like they'd been struck by lightning. Lin Xiao? The one they'd thrown out. The one they'd sworn wouldn't last 3 days. Where would he get meat? And roasting it? Impossible. Suehua shrieked first. He didn't even take a corn bun yesterday. Where'd he get money for meat? He stole it. That's it. He stole it from us. Dajuan slammed the table and shot to his feet, his face twisting up with rage. Son of a, he dares steal from me. Come on. I'm gonna go break his legs. And the whole family came storming out, charging for the East End. They were going to see for themselves what this worthless one they'd swept out the door was really up to. By the time they got there, my shack had become the center of attention for the entire village. The walls leaked air from every side, which only helped that overpowering smell spread without a thing to stop it. The villagers stood 3 deep around the hut, necks stretched, throats bobbing. Lord above, what kind of meat is that? How can it smell so good? Who knows? The Lins kicked the 3rd son out yesterday, and today he's eating meat? It's unnatural. You think maybe he stole it? Should keep it down. Poor kid just got thrown out. Why would he steal? Mixed into the murmuring was the loud sound of children swallowing. In a year that hungry, a meal like this was a deadly temptation to anybody. Then a commotion broke out at the back of the crowd. Move. Get out of the way. Dajuan came shoving through, that ox of a body of his bullying people aside till he hit the front. So, right behind with her face all spite and venom, my parents trailing with faces gone gray. When the Lins arrived, the chatter died down, but the villagers' eyes got more interested, not less. Now there'd be a show. Lin Xiao. Dajuan bellowed at the rickety door. You ungrateful little animal, get out here. Stealing, and you steal from your own family. I'll break both your legs today. Suehua planted her hands on her hips and screeched right along. Everybody come judge for yourselves. We raised this boy out of the goodness of our hearts, and the day after we set him loose, he sneaks back to steal our meat. An ingrate like this ought to be paraded through the streets. And just like that, the crowd thought they understood. Stolen. Well, that explained it. A lot of the looks aimed at my shack flipped from envy to scorn. Inside, I listened to them screaming and didn't feel a thing. I tore off a strip of deer leg, sizzling and dripping fat, and chewed it slow. Firm meat, with that clean wild taste the mountains give it. Far better than greasy pork. When I didn't make a sound, Dajuan took it for guilt, took it for me being too scared to show my face. His fury hit the ceiling. You dog, you gonna play dead in there? He roared, reared back, and kicked the busted door as hard as he could. The door blew inward off its frame and crashed to the floor in a cloud of dust. And there I was, laid bare for everyone to see. A fire blazing in the middle of that dim wreck of a hut, me sitting on a rock, gnawing a golden, dripping leg of meat like there wasn't another soul on earth. At my feet, a pile of bones picked clean and an empty clay jar. The easy, contented look on me, against all that tension out front. The contrast was almost cruel. The villagers gaped. They'd pictured me caught in the act, scrambling, terrified. They never imagined I'd be this calm. You little animal. Suawa found her voice first, pointing at the meat in my hand, shrieking like I'd dug up her ancestors' graves. You're still eating it. Put our meat down. Dajuan's eyes went bloodshot. He charged in, one big slab of a hand swinging straight for my face. I'll teach you to steal. If that slap had landed flush, half my face would have swollen up. But the instant before it hit, I moved, fast enough that nobody even saw me rise. I shifted the meat to my left hand, and my right foot came up, late and still first, and drove a hard, simple kick straight into Dajuan's gut. Out, I said. One cold word. There was a dull thud, and all 180-some pounds of him went flying backward like he'd been rammed by a bull, stumbling out the door and slamming down into the snow, where he lay a long moment, unable to get up. Dead silence. Everyone sucked in a breath, eyes near popping out of their heads. This was the soft, bookish Lin third son. One kick, and he'd launched Dajuan, the man famous for his strength. Dajuan. My mother cried, rushing to prop him up. Suehua froze with her finger out, sputtering, too scared to come closer. And my father's pupils shrank to pinpoints, locked on me, full of shock. I stood slow, brushed off dust that wasn't there, and ran my cold eyes across their faces before landing on Suwa. You're saying I stole your meat? Didn't you? She snapped, putting up a brave front. We butchered a pig yesterday, and today you're eating meat. What else would it be? I let out a thin, contemptuous laugh. I didn't bother looking at the family again. I turned to the watching crowd and raised my voice. Neighbors, the old hunters especially, come take a look. I kicked the hare I hadn't gotten to out the door into the snow. Shot that one this morning. Now smell the meat in here. Look at the bones at my feet. Is that pork, or is that wild game off the mountain? The villagers traded glances, and a few of the bolder old hunters edged forward. One of them, an old man with the sharpest nose in the village, picked up the hare, then leaned in close to the doorway and breathed deep, and finally fixed his cloudy eyes on the picked clean bone by my hand. Something flashed in them. This hare's blood hasn't even fully set, he announced. Shot this morning, no question. Then he pointed inside and raised his voice. And that smells not pork. Pork's got a rank edge to it. This one carries a clean, grassy note. That's roe deer, the foolish roe, the cleverest thing in these hills. Only it smells like that. And the bone, thinner and harder than pig bone. That's a deer leg. I'd stake my life on it. The crowd erupted. Roe deer? One of the hardest animals in the hills to take. Fast, sharp-eared. Dajuan and the rest could go a month without crossing one. And in a single morning, I'd brought down a hare and a roe deer both. Suehua's face went bone white. Dajuan forgot his aching gut and scrambled up, roaring in disbelief. Impossible. You? There's no way you brought down a roe deer. Whether I can or can't is none of your business, I said, my eyes cold as ice. You're the ones who came storming over at dawn, called me a thief without a shred of proof, and tried to put hands on me. The evidence is right there. So what have you got to say now? I didn't say it loud, but every word landed like an open-handed slap across the family's faces. Their color went green, then white, a whole show of it. They'd come to catch a thief and walked straight into their own humiliation. Even if you shot it yourself. Suwa tried one last time, jabbing her finger at me, shameless. You're still a Lin. Anything you catch belongs to the family. Sitting here eating alone, that's unfilial. I laughed out loud, a real laugh, like I'd just heard the funniest thing in the world. Then it cut off, and my eyes turned to ice and drove straight into my father. Lin Xiao, why don't you tell everyone how you threw me out last night, in front of the whole family? You said whether I lived or died had nothing to do with the Lins. Everybody here heard it. And now that I've caught some game, suddenly I'm a Lin again? Is it that cheap to be your son? What are your faces made of? Stone from the corner of a city wall? Or rocks out of a latrine pit? Every word cut to the bone. My father stood there with my finger leveled at him, his old face going dark as pig liver, his lips trembling, and not one word came out. He'd said it himself, the night before. How could he take it back? You unfilial son, he finally choked out. Thin and weak. Unfilial. I said coldly. From the moment you threw me out, there's nothing left between us but a debt to settle. I stepped forward, and something came off me that set their nerves jangling. Suehua and my mother both fell back a pace. Now take your people and get off my ground. Come back and make trouble again, and the next kick won't stop at the belly. Then I ignored them completely, turned back to my fire, picked up the rest of the meat, and ate it down in front of every last one of them. Big, loud mouthfuls. To the Lins, that sound was the deepest insult there was. We're leaving, my father ground out through his teeth, and turned without another look. Dajuan shot me one venomous glare, clutched his gut, and slunk off on Suehua's arm. A big dramatic thief catching, and it ended with the Lins crushed and humiliated. The villagers watched them go with scorn and laughter in their eyes. And when they looked back at my shack, at the boy eating alone, the look had changed for good. Not pity anymore. Oh, curiosity. And deep, heavy envy. I didn't share with anyone. I had no intention of it. While the crowd was still milling, I walked out, picked the hair up off the snow where I'd kicked it, carried it back in, and propped the broken door back over the gap, shutting out every greedy eye out there. The message was plain. My game. You don't even get to smell it. Once they'd finally drifted off, I finished the deer leg and went to the darkest corner of the hut, where a pile of rotten thatch was heaped. I pulled it aside to reveal a crude root cellar I'd dug through the night, just for show. Into it went the rest of the deer and the hare, covered carefully with thatch and broken boards until you couldn't tell a thing from the outside. The storage space was my one real secret, and it could never be seen. As far as the world was concerned, this cellar was where I kept my food. Then I slipped out through a hole in the back wall, quiet as a cat, and made for the town of Qingshi, 20 li off through the hills. In Qingshi, on Howell Lane, I didn't go straight to the goods shop. I watched the mouth of the lane a good while first, making sure there were no red armband patrols around, before slipping into the place with the single character for money on its sign. Boss, I said, low and direct. Got fresh mountain goods. Let's talk out back. The shopkeeper, a man with a goatee named Qian Yud, lifted his eyelids. He saw a kid of 18 or 19, but with a strange steadiness in the eyes, and nodded without a word. Out in the back courtyard, he shut the door and looked me over. All right, kid. What V you got? Let's see it. I didn't pull anything from the space. That was the key part of my plan. I patted the ratty sack on my back. Boss Qian, I came to you because I trust you. The goods are stashed at the foot of the mountain outside town. One whole hog, over 300 pounds, one clean shot, no other marks on it. You want it? I'll go fetch it now. His eyes changed on the spot. A whole 300-pound hog. That was a huge deal. And the way I'd done it, talk first, deliver after, was airtight. Showed strength, kept me covered, nothing like a beginner. You're a sharp one, he said, warming right up. We can talk price. 80 cents a pound. How's that? I laughed inside but kept my face flat. Boss Qian, if I wanted easy, I'd have butchered it and sold it in pieces. I'm bringing you the whole animal so you can turn a real profit. I held up one finger. One price. $1 a pound. And I don't want it all in cash. Cash takes up room, and room makes trouble. Oh, he got interested. Then what does my young friend want? 300 pounds. Give me $30 cash for walking around money. I laid out the real reason I'd come. The other 270, turn it all into coupons. 100 pounds of grain coupons, 20 feet of cloth coupons, 10 pounds of oil coupons, 5 pounds of sugar coupons. Whatever's left, throw in some coal coupons, match coupons, the little stuff. His breath quickened. The kid knew exactly what he was doing. In those years, coupons could be worth more than cash. He ran the numbers fast. Less cash for him, sure, but he'd unload a pile of dead-stock coupons for a top-grade wild hog he could flip for a fortune. And he'd hook into my supply line besides. Done, he said, slapping his thigh. I like a man who talks straight. Go get the goods. I'll have your cash and coupons ready. Half an hour later, I rolled the hog into the courtyard on a borrowed handcart, packed under thatch, pulled from the space in some empty corner, of course. Money and goods changed hands clean. I tucked the heavy $30 and the thick stack of precious coupons against my body, turned down Qian's friendly invitation to stay, and got out of Howell Lane fast. I didn't head home yet. I wandered the town co-op and the general store and spent those fresh coupons, 2 sacks of rice, 2 of fine flour, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, seasonings of all kinds. A few feet of sturdy cotton cloth and a few pounds of new cotton batting. I bought it in batches, then found a few empty alleys and quietly folded it all into the space. Nobody saw a thing. Nobody knew that the boy in rags had just pulled off a startling bit of bootstrapping. By dusk, when I slipped home under cover of dark, a strange mood hung over the whole village. Every supper table held the same thin, wild greens gruel. But that faint thread of meat smell still drifted through the air, and everybody knew where it came from. The broken hut on the east end, and it hooked them like a line they couldn't shake. At the Lin's place, the air was heavy enough to wring water from. Dad, Mom, you're just going to sit here and watch that little animal eat like a king out there? That should all be ours. Suehua's eyes were red with envy. My father sat dark-faced, pulling one draw after another on his pipe, eyes flickering through the smoke. He was sorry. Sorry cleared down to his guts. Tomorrow, he ground out at last, like it cost him everything. Tomorrow you and your mother go bring him back. Tell him the family was wrong. Tell him to move home. But they didn't understand. Some things, once they break, never go back together. Back in my hut, the first thing I did was fix the place up. I mixed mud and leaves and gravel and packed every gap in the walls where the wind got through. I spread a thick oilcloth across the floor to block the damp. In no time, the wreck of a shack had turned into something warm and hidden, a place to settle. Only then did I pull a cut of deer from the cellar, set it over a small fire I'd readied, and start it roasting slow. I got out the bottle of sheafing liquor I'd bought too. No big show this time. I burned smokeless fruitwood charcoal and kept the smell down low. Even so, the rich roast and the warm liquor together made for about as fine a thing as a man could ask for. And right as I was enjoying it, there came a faint rustling outside the door, and then a woman's groan, low, like she was holding back pain. I stopped. Hawkeye snapped on, and my sight cut clean through the busted door. Out in the snow, a slight figure was curled up, shaking all over. It was Bai Xiaozhu, the widow, the same woman who tried to bring me chicken soup that day. Her face was white, her forehead beaded with cold sweat, one hand clamped hard over her belly. I frowned, got up, and pulled the door aside. Sister Xiaozhu? What's wrong? The door swinging open, and the smell rolling out of it, startled her. She lifted her head, saw it was me, and a flash of panic crossed her eyes as she struggled to stand. It's nothing. I was just passing, resting my feet. She didn't finish. A stab of pain bent her double again with a small cry. Looking at her hunched there in pain, I understood most of it. The foolish woman had figured I'd have nothing to eat tonight, and she'd tried to sneak me something under cover of dark, and somewhere on the way, something had gone wrong inside her. I sighed, didn't bother saying any of it out loud, just bent down and, over her startled cry, scooped her up in my arms. Lin Xiao, put me down. Someone will see. She was mortified, her face gone red as if it might bleed. Hold still, I said, low, in a tone that left no room for argument. Look at the state of you. You think you're walking home. And carrying her, I stepped into my little hut and set her down gently on the oilcloth-covered bed. When I set her down on the oilcloth-covered bed, Bai Xiaozhu didn't seem to know what to do with herself. I could see her heart going like a rabbit's, hammering away. She'd been in this shack once before, in daylight, and it had been cold and damp and miserable. But now every gap in the walls was packed tight. Fresh oilcloth covered the floor against the chill, and a good fire burned in the middle of the room, throwing out heat and a warm orange light. And there was a smell in the air, rich roast meat and liquor, and under it, something off of me that I think made her feel safe, even if she couldn't have named it. Put me down, she said, her voice thin as a thread. Really, I'm fine. She tried to push herself up, and a cramp tore through her belly and folded her over with a sharp breath, her face going whiter. Still fine, I said, and my frown got deeper. I reached out and pressed her shoulder back down, no asking about it. Lie still. Don't move. My hand was broad and warm, and the heat of it went straight through her thin shirt, and she shivered once and went still. I had a fair guess what was wrong. Country women in those years lived half-starved and half-frozen, worked to the bone, and a lot of them carried that in their bodies, and a few days out of every month it came back on them hard. I didn't ask. Asking would only have shamed her. I turned and, from the space, pulled out an enamel mug and a small packet wrapped in oil paper, though to her eyes I was just rummaging in some plain bundle in the corner. I poured in hot water I'd carried back from town that afternoon, tore open the packet, and broke off a chunk of the reddish-brown block inside and dropped it in. A sweet smell filled the little room at once. Brown sugar. Her eyes went huge. In those days, brown sugar was worth more than fine white flour. You only got to buy a little block of it, with a coupon, when somebody had a baby, to build the new mother back up. Ordinary people never even saw it. And here I was, breaking off a piece that size to make her a drink. This is, her voice shook. Don't talk. Drink it while it's hot. I held the warm mug to her lips. My hands were clumsy at it, but I wasn't taking no for an answer. She started to refuse. Then she met my eyes, and the words died in her throat, and she let me hold the mug and drank it down in small sips, most of a steaming cup of sweet sugar water. The warmth slid down into her belly and pushed the cold out of her, and even that gnawing cramp seemed to ease off. Her eyes went red around the rims without her meaning them to. After her husband died, she'd raised 2 children alone, taking every cold look and every shove the world gave her. Going hungry, going cold, that was just life. When she got sick, she gritted her teeth and got through it alone. Nobody had ever taken care of her like this. And with something as precious as brown sugar, no less. Thank you, she said, head down, a catch in her voice. Lin Xiao. For what? I set the empty mug aside, flat. It's a cup of sugar water. You brought me chicken soup today. The more I made it nothing, the more it got to her. A bowl of chicken soup wasn't anywhere near a chunk of brown sugar, and we both knew it. The room went quiet in a way that felt fragile. The firelight jumped across both our faces. Me, sharp and steady. Her, soft and flushed and shy. You went to town today? She said, just to fill the silence, which was scaring her. Traded for a few things. I tore a strip off the dripping roast deer beside me and held it out. Hungry? Eat something. Her stomach growled before she could stop it, and her face went hot enough to fry an egg. I'm not. Don't stand on ceremony with me. I pushed the meat into her hand. Eat. You need your strength. Those 2 little ones at home are counting on you. At the word children, her face dimmed, but she took the meat. She was too hungry not to. She ate it in small, careful bites, dainty about it, and I think it tasted like 100 things at once to her. Lin Xiao, she said, hesitating between mouthfuls. Don't take this wrong, but you hit Dajuan today, and you've been eating meat by yourself. The Lins must hate you now. And the rest of the village. They won't say it, but who knows how jealous they are. You're out here alone. You have to be careful. I know. Something cold flickered through me. Anybody who wants to take the food out of my mouth had better have the ability, and not mind dying for it. There was a hardness to it, down in the bone, and it made her start. She looked at me like she was seeing somebody new. I wasn't the quiet, mild boy she'd had in her head. I was something coiled up, and when it moved, it was going to move the whole world. What do you mean to do? After this, she couldn't help asking. Do? I smiled, and drained the last of the liquor in my cup, and there was a light in my eyes you could only call ambition. Eat the best meat. Drink the strongest liquor. Wear the warmest clothes. And then build the finest house in this village, in the whole town. So the people who looked down on me, who pushed me around, can kneel on the ground and look up at the heels of my feet. I didn't say it loud, but every word landed on her like a hammer. She just stared at me, struck dumb. She'd never heard a man in those years dare to say something so wild, so against the grain, and so thrilling. The look on her, dazed and a little worshipful, made me want to laugh, and it eased the air between us. All right, it's late. I stood. Sleep here tonight. I'll keep watch outside. What? You can't. She went pale and tried to get up. I'm much better. I have to get home. Otherwise tomorrow the village will talk. Talk about what? My eyes sharpened. Anybody who wags their tongue, I'll tear their mouth off. You go now, and the pain comes back halfway, and you freeze to death in the snow. Then what? It was rough, but there wasn't anything in it but care, and it set her back on her heels with her eyes red again. Lie down. Sleep. I said it like an order, then pulled a brand new cotton quilt from the corner, out of the space, of course, and dropped it over her. Cover up. And I picked up the liquor bottle and the last of the meat and walked out without looking back, pulling the busted door shut behind me. Out in the wind, I leaned against the cold wall and listened until the room went still, then let out a long breath. I'm no saint. A soft, lovely woman in my arms. I'd be lying if I said the thought didn't cross my mind. But I knew it wasn't time. Bai Xiuzhu was a good woman, and that was exactly why I wasn't going to take advantage of her. I wanted her to come to me willingly. I wanted her to see that I could hold up the sky for her and her girls. Then it would happen on its own. Inside, she lay wrapped tight in that new quilt that smelled like sunshine, feeling a warmth and a safety she'd never had, her heart in a tangle. She listened to the faint sounds outside the door and knew I was really out there, keeping watch over her through the night. This man, rough, high-handed, and somehow so gentle it ached. Neither of us said another word that night. The next morning, when the first light came through the thatch, she woke with the pain in her belly gone clean and a lightness all through her. She sat up fast and found I wasn't outside the door anymore. But by the fire sat a clay jar of hot rice porridge, still steaming, and beside it 2 white flour buns and a small packet of brown sugar wrapped in oil paper. Her heart gave a hard lurch. She knew what I was telling her, in the plainest way I could. Come with me, and you can have all of this. Every single day, she slipped out quietly in the end. She took the warm porridge with her, but stubbornly, she left the precious brown sugar behind. I looked at that packet sitting on the table, and the corner of my mouth went up. I'd pried this woman's heart open a crack. Now I just had to widen it with what I could do and what I could provide, until she couldn't refuse. After a quick breakfast, I went back into the hills. Hunting wasn't much of a challenge for me anymore. Hawkeye on, and nothing within 500 meters could hide. Rifle in hand, and the marksman instinct meant every shot landed. In one morning the space held another 200-pound boar and a dozen smaller animals. But I didn't head to town. I slung a pheasant over my shoulder and walked to the west end of the village, to Carpenter Zhang's place. Zhang was an honest old craftsman, poor as a church mouse, but the best woodworker for miles. I knocked. "Who is it?" came an old voice. When he saw me at the door and the fat pheasant in my hand, he froze. Lin Xiao. "Uncle Zhang, I want a full set of furniture. Table, chairs, stools, a bed, a cabinet, all in the best wood." I held the bird out. "This is the deposit." His throat worked at the sight of a pheasant that had to go 5 pounds, but he waved both hands. I couldn't. "You pay me for the work. That's plenty. This is far too much. I'll pay for the work too, but you're taking the bird." I left no room in it. "I've only got one condition. Fast and good." That settled him. He took the pheasant and shaking hands. You've got it. I'll make it beautiful for you, I swear." "Good. I'll come for it in 3 days." And I turned and walked off. The plan for a new house was already laid out in my head, and that furniture was step 1. Word got around fast, and soon the whole village knew Lin Xiao had been extravagant enough to put a whole pheasant down as a deposit on a complete set of new furniture. The place lost its mind. Good Lord, what's he doing? Man lives in a falling-down shack. What's he want with fine furniture? You fool. It means he doesn't plan to stay in that shack. He's going to build a house. Build a house. Where'd he get the money? When the Lins heard it, it hit them like another bolt of lightning. Suehua wept and raged at home, pounding the table. You hear that? You hear it? The little animal's got money for furniture and won't spare a thing for his own family. He's turned the whole world upside down. My father sat on the heated brick bed, pulling on his pipe, his face dark enough to drip water. The day before he'd been daydreaming about calling me home. Now it was plain, my wings had grown in, and I didn't count them as anything at all. He was sorry, and he hated it, and it churned in him. I didn't care about any of the village's chatter. For the next 2 days, I went up the mountain, hunting, and really went to town, turning game into cash and coupons. My money snowballed. On the 3rd day, I didn't go to the black market. I went straight to the town housing office. I was going to buy a house. Building in the village meant a big, obvious target and too many eyes. Better to buy a courtyard in town, quiet, and convenient for moving goods out of the space. Inside the housing office, a young woman in a faded blue work uniform sat writing, a single thick braid down her back, a small badge pinned to her chest. About 20, with healthy sun-browned skin and sharp, handsome features, and a pair of eyes, black and white and clear, with a fierce, unbending snap to them. "Comrade." "A question," I said, rapping the desk. She looked up, saw a country kid in rags, and her brow gave the smallest twitch before she went into the official voice. "What is it?" "I want to buy a courtyard in town. You got anything suitable?" She stopped. Then she looked at me like I was simple. "Buy a courtyard? Little comrade, you joking? You have any idea what a courtyard goes for in town these days?" There was open mockery in it. "Just tell me if you've got one," I said, even. My calm made her laugh, half annoyed. She set down her pen, folded her arms, leaned back, and went teasing. Sure, we've got one. South side, near the riverbank. A standalone courtyard. 3 main rooms, 2 side rooms. The former owners were bad class background and got sent down, so it's empty, listed with us for sale. Why? Interested. She'd picked the best and most expensive thing on the list. Sure, I was all mouth. Price? I asked. Set price. 800. She named an astronomical number, waiting to watch me bolt. 800. In a time when an ordinary worker made 30 or 40 a month, that figure would scare off any normal family. But my answer threw her again. All right, take me to see it. Easy as ordering a pound of cabbage. What? She thought she'd misheard, sat bolt upright, and pinned me with those sharp eyes. What did you say? I said, take me to see it. I repeated it, then pulled a small cloth-wrapped bundle from inside my coat and set it on the desk, unhurried. I opened it just enough to show a thick stack of 10 yuan notes. I didn't take it all out, but that one glimpse was plenty. Her mouth came open into a slow O, and for the first time those fierce eyes showed plain disbelief. This ragged country boy could really put his hands on that kind of money? What's your name? Her voice had changed. Lin Xiao. I'm Qin Mushua. She gave hers back before she'd thought about it, then caught herself and flushed and stood up fast. All right, I'll take you to see it now. Walking south through town, she couldn't settle herself. She kept stealing looks at me, full of questions. Who was this Lin Xiao? Where did his money come from? I wasn't paying any attention to her churning. What I cared about was the location, out of the way, stand alone, close to the river. Good for hauling goods down from the hills. Good for whatever else I might want to do later. When I saw it in person, gray brick, dark tile, a little garden, even its own well, I made the call on the spot. This one. The paperwork went smooth. When my name went down clean on the new deed, the way she looked at me had turned from the early scorn into deep curiosity, and something else I couldn't quite read. Congratulations, Comrade Lin Xiao. She handed me the deed, and for once a real smile touched her mouth. Thanks. I took it. The start of a new life. What I didn't know was that my throwing money around that day had left a mark on that sharp, spirited young official that wasn't going to fade. With the deed in hand, my mood was lighter than it had been in a long time. I didn't move in right away. First I swung back to Carpenter Zhang's and told him to deliver the finished furniture straight to the courtyard on the South Riverbank. His mouth fell open wide enough for an egg. A courtyard in town? Lin Xiao, you bought a house in town. Just did. Like I bought a cabbage. He stared at me, and there was nothing left in his face but awe. This young man was no fish for a small pond. Good. I'll get my son, and we'll have it there before dark. Set up just right, sir. He'd slid into calling me sir without noticing. Furniture handled, I went to the black market. Not to sell this time, just to spend. I found Qian Yud and slapped down a shopping list that made his eyelids jump. New quilts, sheets, pillows, a full set of pots and bowls, fine white porcelain, even a thermos and an enamel wash basin. Luxuries only town folk could afford. Brother, you. Come into money, settling down, he fished. Just furnishing a place. I didn't elaborate, just put down a stack of cash and coupons. Best of everything. Money's no object. You got it. Leave it to me. He'd seen what I could spend, and now he treated me like a top client, falling all over himself. I spent the afternoon buying all over town, food, clothes, goods, anything good I could think of that those years could provide, then ducked into empty corners and folded it all into the space, batch by batch. By dusk, I came to my own courtyard. Zhang and his son had the new pinewood furniture set up neat, a faint scent of fresh wood in the air. I paid the balance, threw in 2 extra yuan and half a pound of pork as thanks, and the two of them about wept with gratitude, calling me generous and big-hearted. I saw them off and shut the heavy courtyard gate. All at once, the world went quiet. I stood in the empty yard and breathed in deep. From today, this was mine. A home that was actually my own. I started pulling the day's haul out of the space, piece by piece. Thick soft quilts onto the new pine bed. Snow-white sheets that smelled like sun. In the kitchen, a new iron wok and bright clean dishes set out in rows. In a corner, sacks of rice and flour stacked into little hills. On the windowsill, even a tin of canned fruit from the black market. Inside an hour, that bare courtyard had become a warm, snug place stocked past all reason. I looked it over, satisfied, then pulled a fat chicken from the space, added my new seasonings, and put on a pot of soup that filled the place with its smell. The next morning, the news flew through the village on wings. You hear? Lin Xiao bought a big courtyard in town. What? For real? Where'd he get the money? Dead certain. Carpenter Zhang said it himself. Delivered the furniture yesterday. Saw it with his own eyes. Gray brick, tile roof, a yard, even a well. It hit harder than the road deer had. In those years, for a farmer to move into town was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Lin Xiao hadn't just gotten into town, he bought a house there. It was like stepping straight into the sky. When word reached the Lins, Suehua let out a wail and dropped to the floor, sobbing. It's not right. There's no justice. That little animal's living in a tile house in town, and we're stuck in this mud shack. That house, that money, it should have all been ours. Dajun slammed a fist into the brick bed, eyes red, teeth grinding, and couldn't get out a word. My mother wept too, muttering about sin, sin. And my father just sat on the threshold, pulling on his pipe in silence. But the hard shaking of his hands gave away the storm inside him. He knew now. He'd gotten it completely wrong. What he'd thrown out with his own hands wasn't a burden. It was the gold nugget that could have lifted the whole family up. And now the nugget had flown off, and the Lins were the biggest joke in the village. While all of that boiled over, I was at home drinking chicken soup, easy as you please. A knock at the gate. I opened it and found, of all people, the sharp young official from the day before. Qin Mushiwa. She wasn't in the work uniform today. She'd put on a faded flower print shirt, 2 dark braids hanging over her chest. Less fierce, more like a girl her age. Comrade Qin, something I can do. Her cheeks went the faintest pink. She held up a ring of keys and a few coupons. I came to bring you the spare keys to the courtyard. Forgot them yesterday. And the money you paid. Policy says you get a few industrial coupons back as a subsidy. Brought those too. Thanks. I took them. Of course. Just doing my job. Her eyes drifted past me into the yard, and her breath caught. New sheets on the line. Honeycomb coal briquettes stacked neat by the kitchen. Through the open main room door, the new table and chairs, and a bed piled high with quilts. One day, and the place was already full of life, and every single thing in it new and rich. The smell of chicken soup came out at her, and she swallowed. Her family were both wage earners, well off by town standards, and even they wouldn't dare live like this. Who was this Lin Xiao? How much money did he have? So, you live here alone? She asked, just to be asking. She'd found she was helplessly curious about everything to do with me. I nodded. Then, thinking about it, I added, with a happy look up at nothing in particular, for now. And meals? How do you? Cook them myself. I pointed inside. And right then, another figure appeared at the mouth of the lane, a basket on her arm, hesitating. It was by Xiuzhu. She'd heard I'd bought a house in town. She was happy for me, and at the same time she felt a strange ache and a smallness. She'd wavered a long time, then worked up the courage to boil the last few eggs in her house and bring them, to wish me well in my new home. And then she came around the corner and saw me at my gate, deep in easy conversation with a stylish, handsome town official. She froze where she stood. She looked at me, and at the pretty girl beside me in the flower print shirt with the big braids and that town air all over her. And something invisible closed around her heart and squeezed. It was true. I wasn't the shack boy from the village anymore. I was a town man now, with a fine big courtyard, and of course a girl like that belonged at my side, pretty and educated. And her? A poor, plain country widow with 2 children dragging behind her. What right did she have to come bother me? The light went out of her eyes. Her hand tightened on the basket, and tightened again, and then she turned to slip away without a sound. Sister Xiuzhu. My voice hit her like a thunderclap. I'd seen her at the mouth of the lane through Hawk Eye long before, seen the flash of hurt and shame cross her face. She stiffened and couldn't make her feet move. Qin Mushiwa followed my eyes, and when she saw the country woman in patched clothes with the worried face, something knowing crossed her own, and something wary. Who's she? She asked, before she'd thought about it. A friend. I said it lightly, then turned to her directly. Comrade Qin, you've delivered everything. Thank you. I have a guest to see to. The brush off, with no softening, made her go a little pale. No man had ever shooed her like that. But she met my eyes, bit her lip, and said, not quite willingly, then, I'll go. And she shot a long look at the woman still rooted at the far end of the lane before she turned and left. I let her complicated mood go and walked straight to Bai Xiuzhu. You came all this way. Why not come in? I frowned at her. I, I was just passing by, she said, not daring to look at me, scrambling for the lie. Passing by. My eyes dropped to the cloth-covered basket. I reached out and lifted the cloth, warm boiled eggs underneath. Passing by with eggs? My mouth crooked. Sister, you're a terrible liar. Her face went red to the ears, and she looked like she wanted the ground to open. She couldn't get out a whole sentence. All right, enough. I could see how miserable she was, and I quit teasing. I just took her hand and said, plain and hard, come inside with me. Don't, Lin Xiao, don't. My hand closed around hers, warm and broad, and she startled like she'd touched a live wire and tried to pull free, and found my grip far too strong to fight. So, half pulled and half going, she came through the gate of the courtyard that made her feel so small. I shut it behind us with my heel, and the outside world was gone. Sit. I set her on the stone bench, took the basket, peeled 2 eggs in a few quick moves, held one to her mouth, and put the other in my own. You haven't eaten all day either. Eat first. She looked at the egg at her lips, smelled it, and her eyes went red. Lin Xiao, she said, near to crying. Don't be so good to me. I'm not worth it. Not worth what? I cut her off, my eyes hard on hers. Is it that I, the man with the courtyard, am too good for you, the widow, or that you think a widow's not good enough for a town man? I put my finger right on the rawest part of her. She trembled, and the tears she'd held back came spilling down. I'm dirty. I'm bad luck. I cost my husband his life. I've got 2 children. I'm a burden. I'll drag you down. It all came pouring out of her, every bit of the shame she carried. I listened, quiet, and didn't say anything until she'd cried herself out and her voice had gone small. Then I reached up and wiped the tears off her cheeks with the side of my thumb, light and gentle, and it made her go still again. Done crying? I asked softly. She sniffed and nodded. Then listen to me. My eyes were dead serious now, my voice low and full of weight. 1. Your husband died in an accident. You didn't cost him anything. 2. You raised 2 children alone and kept them healthy. That makes you something to be proud of, and there's nothing dirty about it. 3. I paused, leaned in close to her ear, and said it slow, just for her. When Lin Xiao decides on a woman, there's no such thing as good enough or not good enough. I say you're good enough, so you're good enough. It went through her like another thunderclap, and it shattered every bit of her shame and her fear. She jerked her head up and stared at me, disbelieving. You. I what? The corner of my mouth went up, and I didn't give her any more room to spin herself in circles. I put both arms around her and pulled that soft, slight body in hard against my chest. She gave a little cry as she hit me, and tried to push back, and found all her strength had melted away inside the hold. She could hear my heart going strong and steady, could smell that thing off of me that made her feel safe. From today, you're my woman, I said against her ear, leaving no room in it. No more talk like that. No more thinking you're not good enough. Your man can give you and your children the best life there is. And every wall she had came down. What was she still hesitating for? A man this strong, this sure of himself, and this gentle with her. She'd never meet his like again, not in 100 dreams. Let him go, and all she'd have left was hardship. So she stopped fighting it. She put her arms up and held me tight around the waist, buried her face in my chest, and with everything she had, choked out a single mm. That one sound was her whole answer. I lifted her chin and looked at that lovely, tear-streaked face, and I couldn't hold the fire back any longer, and I bent down and kissed her. The rest of that night, the door stayed shut. By the time everything had gone quiet, it was deep dark. She lay curled against me like a contented cat, a flush of satisfaction and a little tiredness on her face. Lin Xiao, she murmured. Tomorrow I'll bring the children over, and we'll all live together. All right. There was a hope in her voice, and a thread of worry. Silly. I tapped her nose, fond of her. This is your home now. Tomorrow I'll go get them. And while I'm at it, I'll move us out of that broken village for good. I'd already decided. Tomorrow I'd go back to the village and make a clean break of it. From here on, she and I and the 2 girls would start a new life in this home of ours, the kind everyone else could only envy. The next morning I woke at first light. Beside me she was still asleep. After a night of being cared for, the sallow tiredness had left her face, and there was a healthy color to it now, her brow smooth, even a faint sweet curve at her mouth, like a flower that had finally gotten some rain. I didn't wake her. I got up quiet, cooked a pot of white rice porridge in the new wok, and boiled a few eggs. When she drifted awake to the smell of food and saw the steaming bowl by the bed, her eyes went red again. So this was what it felt like, being cared for, being held in someone's heart. Eat up, I said, smiling. When you're done, I'll take you home. She nodded hard, the happiness near to spilling out of her. After breakfast, I didn't go empty-handed. I pulled out a 20-pound boar haunch I'd dressed the day before and a small sack of white flour, bundled them in burlap, and hung the bundle over her arm. What's this for? She said, puzzled. Going back to the village, you don't show up empty-handed. My mouth curved. Some people need to see exactly what kind of life comes with sticking by me. I didn't want a clean break, not really. I wanted the Lins to watch me shine, day after day, and live in nothing but regret. That was the punishment that cut deepest. We walked the mountain road back to the village, one behind the other, and she followed my broad, straight back with a feeling of safety she'd never known. She wasn't a widow with no one to lean on anymore. She had a man now. When the two of us walked into the village side by side, the whole place erupted. Look, it's Lin Xiao and the widow Bai. How'd they end up together? And she's carrying a big sack. That sack looks like meat and white flour. My God. Eyes swept over us like searchlights. And when they caught the blush on her face, she couldn't hide. Every one of them got the picture. This was no chance walk down the same road. These two had gotten together. I didn't give the pointing and whispering a thought. I held my head up and walked her straight to the broken mud house that had been hers. Daya, Arya, open up. Your uncle's come to take you to a new home in town. I called it out clear. The door creaked, and two small heads in piggy-tail braids and patched old clothes poked out. The bigger one, about 5 or 6, was Daya. The little one, only 3 or 4, was Arya. Both were pretty as carved dolls, with big eyes like black grapes, just small and a little thin from too many lean years. Mama, they flew straight at Baishouju. Oh, she dropped down and gathered both girls in, and the tears started again. There now, don't cry. I crouched down too, dug 2 fruit candies out of my pocket, peeled the wrappers, and held them to the girls' mouths. Here, call me uncle. Sweet smell. No child alive can hold out against it. The two of them looked shyly at me, then at their mother, and at her encouraging nod they finally whispered, faint as a mosquito's hum, Uncle. Good girls. I tucked the candies in their mouths, then scooped one up in each arm. Easy. That warm little scene settled it for everyone watching. Lin Xiao hadn't just bought a house in town. He'd taken the prettiest widow in the village, and by the look of it, her children too. The man had won at life. Off at the back of the crowd, the Lins had come running at the news, and they stood watching it with their insides soaking in vinegar. Suehua dug her nails into her own palms, eyes near spitting fire. Shameless little fox. Husband not 2 years in the ground, and she's already hooked onto somebody. But there was nothing under the venom but helpless, sour misery. My father and mother stared at the 2 little girls in my arms, at how gentle I was with their mother, and it churned them up worse than anything. Their own son, gone off to be a stepfather to another family's children, and they, his own parents, didn't even have the standing to walk up and say a word. The regret gnawed at them like a snake. I'd seen the Lins, of course. My eyes went over the crowd and crossed my father's tangled gaze for just a second, and then I let the corner of my mouth lift in a thin, mocking smile. I didn't say a thing, but that smile landed on him like an open hand across the face. I pulled my eyes away and was done with them. Xiaoju, anything else here you want to take? No, she said, looking at the little house full of bitter memories, and shook her head. Nothing. Then let's go. A child in each of my arms, her with the burlap sack of meat and flour over her arm. The 4 of us walked out of the village with our heads up, through all those envious, jealous, complicated looks. From that day, we were done with that poor, backward place for good. On the road, the girls warmed up to me fast. Uncle, is the house in town like the ones in pictures? Daya asked. Better than the pictures. And is there meat to eat? Arya licked her lips and asked it small. I laughed out loud. There is. Not just meat, white flour buns, white rice. From now on you eat all you want, every day. Yay. Their cheering and the happiness on their mother's face cut deep into the Lins standing at the village edge. Dad, Mom, you're just going to let him walk off like that? Dajuan said, not able to stand it. My father didn't answer. He only turned away in silence, and his stooped back, in the cold winter wind, looked about as bleak and lonely as a man can look. When I got by Shouju and the two girls back to the little courtyard on the south side, the children just stopped and stared. Gray brick underfoot, bright tile overhead, a wide sunny yard, and over in the corner a well you could pump with one hand and get water. Wow, Mama, it's beautiful here, Dia said, her little face flushed with excitement. Uncle, are we really going to live here? Arya tugged at my pant leg, looking up, those black grape eyes full of disbelief. Of course, this is your home now. I smiled and set them down. When Bai Shouju led the girls into the three big, bright rooms, she couldn't get a word out. Smooth wooden table and chairs, a soft pinewood bed, brand new pots and dishes, sacks of snow-white rice and flour stacked in the corner. It all looked like something out of a storybook, the kind of thing only a landlord's family had. What are you standing around for? I said, half laughing at the look on them. Get settled, we'll make lunch. Oh, right. She snapped out of it, rolled up her sleeves, and there was a glow on her face you could only call happiness. She tucked the few old clothes they'd brought into the new cabinet, got the girls settled, and dove into the new kitchen. Looking at that white flour and the fat boar haunch, she felt like she was dreaming. She scooped out half a sack of flour, carefully, and cut off a big slab of pork. She was going to make pork and cabbage dumplings, the kind they'd never once let themselves have. I played the man of leisure, sitting easy on the stone bench in the yard, showing the girls how to work the pump. The place filled up with their laughing. And sitting there in the middle of it, I felt a kind of satisfaction I'd never had before. This was the life I'd been after. Meanwhile, over at the town housing office, Chin Mushue couldn't keep her mind on anything all morning. My face kept surfacing in her head, calm and sure of itself, and along with it, that pitiful country widow who'd appeared out of nowhere. Humph, what's so great about him? He's just got a little money, she muttered, sour, trying to push my image out of her head, and finding the harder she tried, the clearer it got. Little Chin, what are you spacing out for? It's lunchtime, one of the older women in the office called, smiling. Oh, coming. She came back to herself and pulled her aluminum lunch tin out of the drawer. Inside were 2 corn buns and a pinch of salt pickle, decent fare by the standards of a town office. But just as she got up to fetch hot water, a smell came drifting in through the gap in the window. Rich, heavy, the unmistakable mix of white flour and pork. Dumplings. Pure meat dumplings. The whole office stopped what they were doing and sniffed the air as one. Whose house is that? Who's so extravagant they're boiling meat dumplings in the middle of the day? Smells like it's coming from over by the South Riverbank. The South Riverbank. Chin Mushua's heart gave a hard jump. That was where I'd bought my courtyard the day before. Once the thought landed, she couldn't put it down. She looked at the dry, hard corn bun in her tin, then breathed in that maddening meat smell, and something tangled came up in her. Almost without deciding to, she put the lid back on, told the older woman, I'm stepping out, and followed the smell out the door. In my yard, the dumplings were already coming out of the pot, plump and white, like little ingots, heaped in a new porcelain dish. Dip them in a little soy sauce, and they were heaven on earth. Wow, it smells so good. Mama, I want meat dumplings. The 2 girls crowded the table, near to drooling. Slow down. Don't burn yourselves. There's plenty more in the pot. Bai Shouju watched her daughters dig in, her heart aching and full at the same time. She picked one up herself and bit into it, mouth full of meat and dough, and nearly cried from how happy it made her. This kind of life was something she'd never have dared dream of, and it all came from the man beside her. She looked at me with so much love and gratitude it could have spilled over. I played the head of the house, putting one in this bowl, adding vinegar to that one, the 4 of us warm and easy together. Then came another knock at the gate. Who is it? I got up to answer. When the gate swung open, we both froze. It was Chin Mushue, standing there with her lunch tin of corn buns in hand, her handsome face gone red with embarrassment. She'd only meant to come check, to be sure. But when the gate opened and that smell of dumplings rolled over her, she knew she'd guessed right. And she could see the heaped dishes on the table, and Bai Shouju gently feeding the children. It went into her like a needle. I was just passing by. She got out, a line even she didn't believe. I looked at her, half wanting to come in, half too proud to, and the tin in her hand against all the food on my table, and I understood the whole thing. I didn't say so. I just stepped aside, generous about it, and smiled her an invitation. You're here, so eat with us. Dumplings just came out of the pot. Her face went redder. How could a state official walk in and eat like some beggar off the street? But the dumplings smelled so good. And right on cue, her stomach growled. That was the last straw on her dignity. She about turned and bolted. But I acted like I hadn't heard a thing, took her by the wrist, and pulled her into the yard. Don't stand on ceremony. You're hungry, so eat. I sat her down in the empty spot at the table, went and got a clean bowl and chopsticks, and filled it to the brim. Bai Xiaozhu saw it, and though it pricked at her a little, she gave Qin Muxue a warm, understanding smile. And that settled it for Qin Muxue. She looked at the thin-skinned, fat dumplings in her bowl, then at the sad little corn bun in her tin, and her pride lost the argument to her stomach. She picked up the chopsticks, lifted one, and took a careful bite. Hot juice burst across her tongue. Good. So good. She'd have sworn it was the best dumpling she'd eaten in her life. After that, she forgot all about being an official and cleaned the bowl out like a windstorm. Only when she finished did she catch up with herself, and her face went red all over again. I just watched her with a little smile. This fierce young official was kind of cute, it turned out. That one meal won her stomach over completely, and it turned her whole opinion of her mysterious neighbor upside down. After, she fought to clear the dishes, red-faced, and Bai Xiaozhu gently waved her off. The two women went back and forth in the kitchen, and the mood between them was, for now, peaceable enough. I was glad to take it easy, out in the sun with the girls. Comrade Lin Xiao, Qin Muxue said, coming out from washing up, eyeing the neat stacks of firewood. Buying this courtyard and all of this today, the food, the goods, it cost a lot. What is it you do? That was the question she was burning to ask. I hunt, I said. Plain. Hunt. Her eyes went wide. You can make this kind of money just hunting? To her, hunters were poor wretches who never knew where the next meal came from. Nothing like the man in front of her. Depends who you compare me to. I smiled and left it there. The more I played it mysterious, the more it nagged at her. She found she couldn't keep her curiosity about me down much longer. Well, it's getting late. I should get back to work. She made her excuse and got ready to go, not quite willing to. Thank you for the dumplings. No need. We're neighbors now. I waved her off. When she was gone, Bai Xiaozhu came out of the kitchen and looked at me with something complicated in her eyes. Lin Xiao, that comrade Qin. She seems like she's interested in you. A woman's instinct is rarely wrong. I turned, pulled her into my arms, and grinned at her ear. What's this? Jealous? I'm not, she said, face red, but she pressed herself a little closer into me, which told the truth her mouth wouldn't. Don't worry. I kissed her forehead. No matter how many people come and go, you are the woman of this house. And that one promise blew every uneasy thing out of her, left nothing but sweetness. The next few days, my family became the most watched sight in all of Qingshi. I still went up the mountain, but on no schedule, and I always came back with some small thing in hand, a pheasant, a hare. The real hauls I handed off quietly to Qian Yud for a steady stream of cash and coupons. And with that, I started improving my family's life in ways that left people gaping. First, I put Bai Xiaozhu and the girls in new clothes head to toe, new cotton cloth, simple cuts, but they carried themselves different the moment they had them on. Bai Xiaozhu especially. In a well-fitting flower print jacket, all the worn-down look fell away, and she went graceful and bright enough that I had trouble looking away. The girls were like two happy little birds, running the yard in their new clothes all day, and the flesh started coming back to their cheeks, round and rosy. But the real sensation came a week later. That day, I hauled a brand-new Red Star radio home from the town department store. In 1958, that was top-shelf luxury, rarer than a sports car would be later on. You couldn't have found 3 or 4 in all of Qingshi. When I rigged the antenna in the yard, and, after a burst of static, a clear broadcast voice came out of it, half the town came running. Listen, it's a radio. Whose is it? Who bought a radio? The South Riverbank. That hunter, the one named Lin. In no time the gate was mobbed with neighbors craning to see, eyes full of envy and shock. I didn't begrudge them. I threw the gate open and let everyone in to hear the novelty. Grown-ups and children crowded around the talking iron box, spellbound. And I sat back in the armchair like an emperor, soaking up all those looks of awe. Bai Xiaozhu and the girls stood straighter, proud. And there in the crowd, Qin Muxue quietly appeared. She watched me at the center of it all, easy and in command of everything. And her heart started slamming without her say-so. This man could always do something earth-shaking, something she'd never see coming. He was a riddle, one with a deadly pull, and she couldn't stop wanting to get closer and figure him out. "Comrade Sheen, you're here. Come in," I called, like I had eyes in the back of my head. Her cheeks went hot, and to the crowd's good-natured laughter she came in, a little shy. "Lin Xiao, you, throwing money around again." She said it like a scold, but there was a closeness in it she hadn't noticed herself. "How is this throwing money around?" I patted the radio. "With this, we can hear the broadcasts every day, keep up with what's happening in the country. Call it keeping pace with the times." The neighbors all nodded along, and that bit of nonsense left her caught between annoyed and amused, till all she could do was roll her eyes at me. The look was something, and it stirred me up a little. And Bai Xiaozhu, off to the side, took the whole thing in. She didn't say anything. She just held her daughter a little tighter. I caught the shift in her. That night, after everyone had gone and we'd shut the gate, I brought out a fine cloth bundle and put it in her hands. "Open it." She did, and gasped. Inside lay a clear silver bracelet and a small pair of silver earrings, the kind of thing only a well-off family gave at a wedding back then. "What did you buy this for?" "It's too dear," she said, her voice shaking. "My woman should have the best." I took the bracelet and put it on her myself, then cupped her face and looked at her. "Remember, whatever Lin Xiao has, you'll always have your share. Nobody gets put ahead of you." And that promise settled her like a stone dropped in still water, smoothed out every ripple of worry. She rose up on her toes and kissed me. I was pleased with myself. I knew that to keep a household like the one I was building, love alone wasn't enough. It took real strength and a careful hand at keeping things balanced. And I was getting good at it. A tall tree catches the wind, and a rich man draws envy. Word that I'd bought a radio didn't just stir up the neighbors. It reached the ears of some of the town's small-time troublemakers, too. One afternoon, I told everyone I was going up the mountain, but really I took Bai Xiaozhu and the girls to the state photo studio for a family portrait. We'd barely reached the mouth of the lane when 3 loafers blocked our way. The one in front was tall and skinny, pockmarked, called Ma San, a known bully who lived off shaking people down. "Well, if it isn't Boss Lin," he said sideways, a grass stem in his teeth. "Were you taking the wife and kids?" His 2 hangers-on grinned, eyes crawling all over Bai Xiaozhu. She'd never faced anything like it, went pale, and ducked behind me, pulling the girls in close. My eyes went cold. I put my family at my back and looked at him flat. "Something you want?" Sure is." Masan stepped closer, rubbing his hands, showing a mouth of yellow teeth. "Money's been tight for me and the boys. Heard Boss Lin struck it rich, bought himself a radio. Figured maybe you'd help out his poor brothers." A flat-out shakedown. Get lost. One word, cold, no feeling in it. His face changed. He hadn't expected this young, soft-looking kid to be so hard. "Boy, who the hell you think you're talking to?" He spat. "You don't cough up 100 to show your respect. You and that woman don't walk out of this lane." "Brother, quit talking to him." One of the others sneered, reaching for Bai Xiaozhu. "Drag the woman over. Let's have some fun." Looking for death. I moved. Nobody saw it. There was just a blur, and the next second the one reaching for her let out a horrible scream. There was a crack, and his wrist hung at a wrong angle. I'd snapped it clean. My hand. My hand." He howled, rolling on the ground. Ma San and the last one stood frozen, stunned that I'd swung without warning and that hard. You son of a..." Before he finished, I was on him in a stride, and a kick like lightning drove into his gut. All his skinny weight flew back 3 meters and slammed into the wall, and he slid down it like a heap of mud, unable to even speak. The last one had gone weak in the legs, and a stink rose off him. He'd wet himself. "Out," I said, cold, and he scrambled up, hauled Ma San with him, and ran without looking back. The whole thing took maybe 15 seconds. My clothes weren't even out of place. I dusted my hands and turned to my wife and the girls, frozen behind me, and that hard edge dropped off me into something gentle. "It's over. Don't be scared." She looked at me with awe in her eyes, and something more like worship. Her man could hunt, had money, and could fight like that besides. A hero out of a story. But the trouble wasn't quite done. As I went to lead them off, quick footsteps came pounding up the lane. Nobody moved. "We got a report, people brawling here." It was Qin Mushiwe, 2 neighborhood watchmen behind her, breathless. When she took in the wreckage and saw my family unhurt, she let out a breath. Then her brows shot up and she marched over, stern. Lin Xiao, what happened here? Did you do this? They tried to shake me down first and to put hands on my family. I said, Even so, you can't just take it into your own hands. You should have reported to the watch first. She said it righteous enough, but there was worry under it. She'd heard back at the office that Ma San was going to corner me, and she'd come running, scared I'd get hurt. Turned out Ma San was the one hurt. Report it. I gave a cold laugh. By the time you got here, my wife and kids would have been roughed up already. What good's that? You. She had no answer. All right. I'm the one who hit them. What do you want to do about it? Easy as anything. Looking at me, fearless as a brick, she landed somewhere between exasperated and amused, but mostly she felt, oddly, safe. She knew this man could always keep his family protected. She put her stern face back on and told the watchmen, go bring Ma San and those creeps in. Extortion, harassing a woman. That's plenty to keep them busy a while. She was housing office, but she knew everyone, and the watch listened to her well enough. Then she turned and dropped her voice, just for me. And you don't know when to ease up. Next time something like this, you run first. You hear me? It wasn't a scolding. It was care. I looked at that face trying so hard to be severe and not hiding the worry at all, and something moved in me. I leaned to her ear and said it just as quiet. Understood, Comrade Sheen. But if you show up this fast again next time, I'm going to take it that you're worried about me, specifically. My breath went warm across her ear, and she shivered head to foot and went red to her collar. What nonsense are you talking? She jumped back like a cat that had had its tail stepped on, glaring, embarrassed and flustered. The nerve of him, teasing her in front of people. The look of her like that made me laugh out loud. And Bai Xiaozhu, again, took it all in. She didn't say a word. She just held her daughter a little tighter. But this time there was no unease in her eyes. Instead something knowing, and something I couldn't quite name. She understood that this pretty official, Qin Mushua, was about to be won over by her man too, the way she had been. And what she had to do was hold her own as the woman of the house. Because I'd shown her, in deeds, that no matter what came at us from outside, I'd always be the solid thing she and her children could lean on. When the watch hauled Ma San's crew off, it sent a real shock through the town. Qin Mushua wasn't on the watch, but she was a state official and the first to report it, so her naming them for extortion carried weight. You hear? Ma San's bunch went down, carted off to the station. By whose hand? Who else? That Lin Xiao on the South Riverbank. Man can fight, and Comrade Qin from the housing office went down to the station to vouch for him herself. Lord, that's a real dragon. Money and an official backing him both. The rumors grew in the telling, and my standing in Qingshi hit a new high. The small fry who'd had ideas about me all went quiet, which was exactly the effect I wanted. Kill the chicken to scare the monkeys. I took my family to the studio like nothing had happened, and in one flash of the bulb, we had our family portrait. Later, I had it enlarged and hung in the most prominent spot in the main room. That night, Qin Mushue couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw me standing between my family and harm, saw the fierce way I'd moved to protect them. The man was like a jar of strong liquor, sharp, overbearing, and impossible not to want a taste of, and once you'd had it, you were lost. But he already had a household. The widow and he were clearly close, and there were the two sweet little girls. Her heart was a tangled mess. The days after went quiet, and my life got even better. I bought a brand new bicycle, and every afternoon I'd take Bai Xiaozhu and the girls out riding around the town. The whole place envied us. And Qin Mushue, like she was under a spell, kept finding reasons to come by the South Riverbank. A housing safety check one day, registering residents the next, fire prevention outreach the day after. She always had an excuse to turn up at my gate. I never called her on it, just warmly asked her in for tea every time. And Bai Xiaozhu got used to this Comrade Qin's frequent visits, even started setting aside food for her. The two women's relationship grew into something delicate. The turning point came in a sudden storm. My wealth and mysterious background finally drew ugly speculation. Soon a strain of gossip was quietly going around. That fellow Lin, his money came from nowhere clean. He's profiteering for sure. More than that, heard his name was no good back in the village. A loafer. And that widow buys no better. Husband barely cold, and she took up with him. Shameless. The talk got worse. and somebody sent an anonymous report straight to the housing office, questioning where my money for the house had come from and demanding the organization investigate me for speculation. That letter went off like a bomb at the office. The director called Qin Mushua in and slapped it on the desk, grim. Little Qin, you handled this Lin Xiao's purchase. Now someone's reported him. What do you make of it? She read the filthy words on the page and shook with anger. She knew I made my money hunting, fair and square. This was naked jealousy and slander. Director, this is absolutely a smear, she said without hesitation. Comrade Lin Xiao is a well-known hunter from Kaoshan village. He earned every cent risking his life in the mountains. I'll vouch for him. You'll vouch? With what? He frowned. The masses have raised concerns, so we have to investigate. I'm handing it to you. Get to the bottom of it and give the people an answer. Handing it to her. He had his own angle. He knew she was close to me and figured she'd both calm the talk and keep it small. She took the letter, angry and worried both. Angry at the spite, worried I'd get caught in it. In those years, the label of speculator could ruin a man. She about ran to my place. Lin Xiao? It's bad. Something's happened, she called as she came in the gate. I was in the yard teaching the girls their characters. I looked at how worked up she was and just lifted an eyebrow. Sky falling. Worse than the sky falling. She slapped the letter down in front of me. Someone reported you. Said your money's dirty. The director sent me to investigate you. I read the venom on the page, and my eyes went cold. Bai Xiuzhu, off to the side, went pale and didn't know what to do. Don't be scared. I patted her hand, then looked at Qin Mushua, calm, even a little amused. Investigate me? Fine. How do you plan to do it? She was thrown, then went anxious. This is no time for jokes. Think of something. If they push the investigation, even if you come out clean, your name's finished. Something? I smiled. Isn't the something standing right here? Me? You're the one assigned to investigate me. I gave her an easy glance. How the report reads, what the public ends up seeing. Isn't that all down to your one pen? Her heart jumped. She understood me, of course. That goes against principle, she said on reflex. Principle? I gave a cold laugh. Is it the gossips hiding in the dark slandering a good man who have principle, or is it protecting a man who earned an honest living? I stepped in close, near enough to feel her breath. Qin Mushua, one question. Are you helping them, or helping me? It struck the softest part of her like lightning. She looked at my face, at eyes deep enough to fall into, and every hesitation, every struggle, every principle came down at once. She knew she'd already, somewhere along the way, given herself over to this man. I'll help you, she said, biting her lip, forcing it out with everything she had. Good. I smiled, reached out, and over her startled cry, pulled her in against me. Bai Xiuzhu inside saw it. She just quietly covered her daughter's eyes, sighed to herself, and turned and went into the room. Then handle it your way, I said, and make it go away. The next day, a report on the public's complaint of speculation by Comrade Lin Xiao sat on the director's desk. Qin Mushua had written it herself, in a neat hand, and it was thorough and airtight. It stated plainly that her investigation found my money for the house came entirely from lawful personal hunting, and it attached statements from the black market dealer Qian Yud, under an alias, and from villagers in Kaoshan, including the village head, all confirming I was a skilled hunter with a rich income, fully able to buy property. As for the gossip, it framed it as malicious smearing born of envy by certain people and recommended a stern talking to for whoever sent the anonymous report. It painted me as a model of honest prosperity, set upon by petty jealousy. The director read it, nodded, satisfied. He'd never wanted it blown up, and she'd handed him a perfect way out. He picked up his pen and wrote across it, "The claims are untrue and are hereby cleared. Good work, little Qin. Let it end here." And so a storm aimed at me was quietly put down with one pen. That night, in my little courtyard, I raised a cup, smiling. Come on, Comrade Qin, our hero of the hour. A toast to you. The table was a feast, red braised pork, stewed pheasant, steamed fish. All of it by Xiuzhu's cooking, to reward the two women. Qin Mushua's cheeks were flushed, whether from shyness or the liquor. She rolled her eyes at me. Smooth talker. I handled it by the book. But she couldn't hide the smile in her eyes. To use what she had to protect the man she cared for, it left her prouder and more satisfied than she'd ever felt. Bai Xiuzhu poured for them both, smiling, at peace. After the night they'd laid it all out, the three of them settled into a strange harmony. Bai Shouju was soft by nature and knew she couldn't outmaneuver an educated town girl, so she made room for her with grace. And Qin Mushua felt grateful to this gentle older sister, and a little guilty, and treated her with growing respect. After the storm passed, I lived louder. As if to answer the doubt and the slander, I started showing the whole town what I could spend. First, a new sewing machine, the Butterfly brand. With the bicycle and the radio, it was one of the famous three big things, the kind of luxury an ordinary family couldn't dream of. When that gleaming machine came into my house, the women of the town nearly lost their minds, swarming the gate to see the magic device that stitched a neat seam with one push of the treadle. Bai Xiuzhu and Qin Mushue were beside themselves, fighting over it to make the girls new clothes. Then I turned up with a motorcycle, a sidecar three-wheeler from who knows where. When I fired it up and roared down the main road of town with Bai Xiuzhu and Qin Mushue and the two girls aboard, it was about like tearing down the street in a Lamborghini would be in a later age. People gaped. Bicycle, radio, sewing machine, next to an iron beast that ran on its own, it all looked like nothing. Heavens, what is that? An iron donkey that burns oil. Lin Xiao, what kind of a mortal come down to earth is he? My name became a legend in Qingshi. And the legend traveled the 20 li back to Kaohsiung and dug hard into the Lin's raw nerves. Dad, Mom, you hear? Third brother, Lin Xiao. He bought an iron cart that drives itself. Dajuan panted, running in, shock and envy all over him. Suewa's bowl hit the floor and shattered. What? An iron cart. My father sat on the edge of the brick bed, eyes bloodshot, looking like the life had been drained out of him. Every bit of news about me these past weeks had gone into him like a knife. A house, a wife, a radio, a sewing machine. He'd thought that was the limit of what he could imagine. And now a motorcycle that ran on oil. That was a thing not even the commune secretary could ride. The son he'd thrown out with his own hands, the one he'd called worthless, was living so far above him he didn't have the standing to even look up at it. The regret and the envy cooked at his insides day and night. He stopped sleeping, started coughing through whole nights, and got visibly thinner. Dad, what if we go to town and find him again? Dajuan said, clutching at one last hope. We apologize. He can't just watch us starve. Out. My father snatched up his pipe and hurled it. You want to go, you go? I haven't got the face for it. Hard words. But under them, who's to say there wasn't a thread of the same wish? Just as my life and standing hit their peak, a new face came quietly into view. I'd gone to the town clinic to get the girls some vaccinations and walked into a problem. The clinic's only woman doctor had taken leave for a family emergency, leaving one young nurse, and the day happened to be packed with children. The nurse was run ragged, several kids wailing in fear of the needle, the whole place near out of control. Her name was Su Wanqing, fresh out of nursing school, and just posted here. She had clear, lovely features, fair skin, and a soft way of speaking, with the gentleness of a girl from down south. Right then she was hemmed in by crying children and anxious parents, near tears herself. Everyone, please, one at a time, she said, her voice swallowed up in the noise. Even my two girls got scared and hid behind me. I frowned, picked up my daughter, and walked up. Everybody quiet. My presence shut the room down at once. I looked at the nurse, about to cry. You just do the shots. The kids, I'll handle. Then, like a magic trick, I pulled a few fruit candies out of my pocket, waved them at the crying children, and gave them a devil's smile. First one to take the shot without crying gets the candy. Anybody cries, nothing for you. Crude and simple, and it worked like a charm. Under the spell of candy, the children looked at each other and, one by one, gritted through it. Su Wanqing stared. I'd cleared in a few moves what she'd struggled with all morning, and there was surprise in her big, watery eyes, and something else. She'd never met a man with that kind of command and that kind of pull. Thank you, comrade, she said, blushing. No trouble. I smiled at the soft, lovely little nurse, and something stirred in me. The clinic, it seemed, I'd be visiting often from now on. After I'd cleared up that small trouble in town and enjoyed a few quiet days at home, the stores in the space were running low, and I decided to go hunt the Black Wind Mountains again. And anyway, I'd always felt the range behind Kaohsiung held far more than the little I'd explored. Early one morning I told my wife and the girls I'd be off, slung the rifle I never let out of my sight. I told people it was an old family hunting gun, stuck the bayonet at my waist, and vanished into the morning mist. This time I was heading somewhere I'd never been, deep into the Black Wind Range. Hawkeye on, and the whole forest went layered and clear in my sight. The veins of the leaves, the beat of an insect's wings, even a snake hibernating a foot under the soil. Not half an hour in, my eyes locked on a cliff a kilometer off. There, in a crack in the rock, grew a plant blood red all over, shaped almost like a person, with a faint shimmer playing around it. A spirit fungus, the kind out of legend. Blood Ling Xiao. My heart slammed. This was a top-grade medicine out of the old stories, said to bring a dying man back from the edge. On the black market, it could buy a whole building. But as I moved to get close, Hawkeye threw up a warning of real danger. In a hidden cave beside the fungus, an enormous creature lay coiled. A black bear, shoulder 1.5 meters high at least, fur a glossy black, easily over 3 meters if it reared up. It was the fungus's guardian, dozing at the cave mouth, but the small flare of its nostrils said it was alert to everything around it. A bear that size, even a well-armed team in a later age wouldn't take on lightly. But fortune favors the bold. The more dangerous the guard, the more the prize was worth. I didn't rush. I settled downwind and waited. Then a small sound came from the other side of the cliff. I turned Hawkeye on it and found a girl in a tight leather coat, agile, scaling the sheer rock hand and foot, working her way toward the fungus. 18 or 19, healthy sun-browned skin from a life outdoors, short hair, spirited. A strong bow on her back, a quiver and a billhook at her waist. An experienced hunter, plainly. And her eyes were bright and wild, like the wariest leopard in the hills. Someone else here. And after the same fungus. Bold to the point of reckless. Did she not know there was a bear king asleep right there? Sure enough, when she'd gotten within 10 meters of it, the great bear's eyes snapped open. A roar shook the whole valley. It had found the intruder. With a speed that didn't match its size, it burst from the cave and lunged at the girl on the rock. Her face went white. She'd never imagined a beast like this was lurking there. But she had startling reflexes. She twisted at the waist, drove off her feet, and swung herself 1/2 meter aside like a gecko. The bear's huge paw smashed into the rock where she'd been, a screaming wind behind it, and cracked a shallow pit in the stone, chips flying. She broke out in a cold sweat. A clean hit, and she'd have been a smear. She scrambled to climb down, not daring to chance it again, but the bear was in a full fury now, coming at her again and again. She dodged along the face of the cliff, near misses every time, her bow useless in that spot. And fast, her strength started to give. On one dodge her foot slipped, and with a cry she came off the rock entirely. Below her was a 10-meter drop, and the bear opened its red maw to take the meal falling into it. Despair flashed across her face, and in that last splinter of a second, a crack rang out from the trees far off. The falling girl saw a line of fire flash past, and then the bear lunging for her shuddered, head jerking, and let out an agonized howl. A single round had gone straight into its open mouth, punched through the roof of it, and blown out the back of its skull. The bear froze, but all that mass kept falling, dropping toward where the girl would land. She blanched, about to be crushed under hundreds of pounds of dead bear. A black shape shot out of the trees, faster than anything human. I reached them just as the carcass came down, caught the girl around the waist, drove off my feet, and rolled the two of us clear. A heartbeat later the bear slammed into the ground where we'd been, and the whole earth jumped. Dust everywhere. The girl, still shaking, found herself in a solid, warm hold. She looked up and met my eyes. For a second, time stopped. "You hurt." My voice, low at her ear. She came to with a start, went red to the roots, scrambled out of my arms, and stood up, stammering. I'm fine. Thank you for saving me." And she still looks at me as she said it. The man in front of her was handsomer than any hunter she'd seen, and there was a steady, powerful something about him that set her heart pounding. That shot, and that impossible speed, this was no ordinary man. It was nothing. I stood and dusted myself off, my eyes going to the bear's huge body, snatched a girl from a bear's jaws, and dropped it with one shot. It filled her look with awe. "I'm Yilan, a hunter from Yejia village down the mountain," she offered, then asked, respectful, "And my benefactor's name?" "Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao." She said it over to herself, her eyes getting brighter. Then she set her jaw and made a bold decision. She stepped up and bowed to me, solemn. Brother Lin, I've never seen skill like yours in my life. I want to take you as my teacher and learn your hunting. Please, take me on. Take her on as a student. I looked at this spirited young hunter, her eyes full of wildness and resolve, and something moved in me. A pretty student at my side. That didn't sound half bad. Take her on as a student. I looked at Yilan, all earnestness, with that stubborn won't back down glint in her eye, and my mouth curved. I didn't say yes and I didn't say no. I walked a slow circle around the huge bear carcass, nudged the thick hide with my foot, and set it flat. Want me for a teacher? Fine. But not just anybody gets to be my student. Her eyes lit up at the opening. Brother Lin, whatever the test, I'm not afraid of it. She'd grown up in these hills, learned hunting at her father's side, and among the young people of Yejia village, she was the best, no question. There was pride in her bones. But that one impossible shot of mine had broken all of it clean off. She knew she'd just glimpsed a level of hunting she'd never even heard of, and she had to grab the chance. Good. You've got spirit. I nodded and looked up at the blood Lingji gleaming on the cliff. See that? The blood Lingji. She gasped, a flash of heat in her eyes. Risking her life out here today, that fungus was what she'd come for. That's right. First test is simple. Go get it down for me. If you can't manage that much, we won't talk about teaching. It looked simple. It wasn't. The cliff was only a dozen meters, but the bear had pounded it slick and loose, and she'd just brushed up against death. That was its own test, on the nerves. She bit her lip, looked at the sheer face, then at my eyes, calm as still water, and that won't quit streak rose up in her. All right, I'll go. No hesitation. She shed her bow and billhook, kept only a small knife clamped in her teeth, shook out her arms, drew a breath, and went up the rock like a nimble ape. She climbed more carefully than before, every foothold solid, every reach locking into a crack in the stone. I stood below with my arms folded, watching at my leisure. Through hawk eye I caught every detail of her climb, even the quickening of her heart. I'll give her that. The girl had real ability, coordination and suppleness both first-rate. A born hunter. A few minutes later she reached the fungus without mishap, pried it whole out of the crack with the knife, wrapped it in cloth, and worked her way back down. When her feet hit solid ground again, a fine sweat beaded her forehead and her chest rose and fell. Brother Lin, I got it. She held the bundle out like a prize, her bright eyes full of hope. I took it, looked inside, nodded. Not bad. You passed the first round. She grinned, excited. And then my next 2 arrows tore the air at once, spiraling up, one behind the other, like twin bolts of lightning. She held her breath, her eyes glued to the rising shafts, her heart in her throat. Her pupils shrank. The arrows didn't fall off. They curved through the air like they had eyes and ran the 2 eagles down dead on. 2 cries rang out from above. The black dots tumbled like leaves in a gale, wings beating, plunging from the sky. 2 birds, 1 draw. Golden eagles in flight, 200 meters up. She was floored. She stood there mouth open, mind blank. What she'd just seen blew clean past anything she knew. This wasn't a man. This was a god, a mountain god come down. Only when the 2 eagles thudded into the grass nearby did she snap out of it. And the way she looked at me had changed completely. No more stubbornness, no more pride. Just fervor, pure, total worship. She dropped to her knees and kowtowed 3 times, hard. Master, your student bows to you. This time her voice was full of real reverence and surrender. Faced with skill like that, she knew she'd spend her whole life walking behind this man, looking up at his back. I looked at the spirited young hunter kneeling there, conquered, and smiled. The little wildcat was tamed. The bit about shooting the eagles down had been a joke, of course. I'd only wanted her to see what I was. Get up, I said. From today, you're Lin Xiao's first student. Yes, master. She scrambled up, excited, and stood meekly behind me like the most obedient little maid. A pretty student, a bear, a pair of eagles, and a top-grade bloodlingji. A good day's haul. Master, what do we do with this black bear? She eyed the mountain of a carcass, excited and worried both. The 2 of us could never carry the whole thing down. Don't worry about that. I had it handled. I drew the bayonet and went to work, skinning, taking the gallbladder, cutting off the paws. Every move precise and quick, like an old butcher who'd cut 1,000 oxen. She watched, eyes lighting up over and over. Her new master could shoot like a god and dress game like nothing she'd ever seen. Not technique. closer to art. In short order, I had a flawless prime bearskin, 2 fat paws, and a precious dark green gallbladder. Take the paws. Call it your tribute for becoming my student, I said, generous. What? No, no, I couldn't. She waved her hands, alarmed. You shot the bear, master. How could I take something so valuable? Your teacher says take it, so take it. No room in it. Your family's not well off, is it? Bring these home. Give your folks a better life. Her eyes went red around the rims. Her family was poor. Her father had hurt his leg hunting years back, and she carried the whole house. She'd risked her life today for that fungus to treat his leg. And this teacher she'd just gained was not only skilled past belief, but thoughtful too. Master, she choked, not knowing what to say. Enough, don't get sentimental. I bundled the paws and slung them on her back. The few 100 pounds of meat left over, I packed in burlap right in front of her and stashed in a hidden cave nearby. I'll come back for the meat in a couple of days, I said offhand. She didn't question it. To her, her master's powers were past fathoming. Anything he did made sense. She didn't know that the moment she turned, I'd folded the meat away into the space. Here, this is for you too. I held out the lingji. What? Master, I really can't take that, she said, backing off. It's a miracle medicine. It's to treat your father's leg. I put it straight into her hands. Its properties are too strong to take whole. When you get home, shave off a small piece, grind it to powder, mix it into his medicine, once every 3 days. Inside a month his leg will heal. It hit her like thunder. How could he know her father's leg was hurt? How could he know how to use the medicine? Could he really read fortunes? Watching her stunned past words, I laughed inside. Hawk, I had let me read her family's situation off the faint smell of medicine on her, and the fungus's use came from the system's knowledge library. But to her, it all just added to the endless halo around her mysterious master. Master, you're truly a divine being, she said, and the worship in her eyes had gone close to faith. Let's talk. Down the mountain. We parted halfway down, her loaded with game and carrying the medicine that would heal her father, looking back at me every few steps. She knew that from today her whole family's fate would turn on the man named Lin Xiao. And I strolled off toward Qingshi, humming. It was dusk when I got home. Qin Muxiue and Bai Xiuzhu were in the yard with the girls, and they came to meet me. Why so late today? Qin Muxiue asked, with care under the scold. Ran into something good. Got held up. I smiled and pulled out an oil paper bundle, waving it. Know what this is? I opened it, and a rich, strange scent spread out. Inside lay 2 birds, cleaned and brushed with a special sauce. Is that golden eagle? Qin Muxiue didn't go into the hills much, but she knew the raptor. It is. Lucky today, ran into 2. Let you try something rare, great for the body. Can't buy it in town for any money. I set them on the rack I'd readied and started roasting. As the flames licked up, the fat sizzled and an overpowering smell of meat filled the yard and drifted out the lane, and the neighbors passing by swallowed hard. The Lin house again. Lord, what are they eating now? Smells like roast bird. Smells that good. It's no ordinary bird. In the yard, Qin Muxiue and Bai Xiuzhu eyed the eagles going golden and dripping, mouths watering. And then Qin Muxiue's nose twitched. She caught, off of me, a faint trace of something that wasn't hers or Bai Xiuzhu's, a woman's scent. Light, sweat and hills and grass, the smell of a young woman. Her eyes changed on the spot. You went up alone today? She asked, casual. Who else? I said, not looking up. She drew it out, those sharp eyes scanning me like a machine. Is that so? Because it seems to me you've picked up something you shouldn't have. Beside her, Bai Xiuzhu's nose gave a sniff too, and her face shifted. She'd caught it. The 2 women's eyes met in the air and reached a silent agreement. The yard filled with a tense, delicate sort of gunpowder smell. This was bad. Their noses were too sharp. But I kept my face easy, laughed, and pulled another thing out and put it straight into Bai Xiuzhu's hands. Look, know what this is? A dark green, clear, fist-sized bear gallbladder. A bear gallbladder? They both cried. More precious than gold. A top medicine you couldn't buy at any price. Ran into a black bear today, dealt with it on the way. I said, light as if I'd stepped on an ant. Sell it, and you've got rouge and powder for a lifetime. Then I produced, from who knows where, a huge bearskin folded neat, glossy black, shining like satin in the lamplight. Wow, what beautiful fur, the girls cried first. and both women's attention snapped over to the two prizes. A woman's scent? What scent? Next to a real bear gallbladder and a prime hide. That faint suspicion went straight out the window. Watching the two of them cradle the skin, delighted, I laughed inside. To run a household that kept growing, feeling alone wasn't enough. Sometimes a blunt, generous gift was the surest way to put out a fire. The bearskin couldn't be hidden. The next day, they laid the huge, glossy thing out in the yard to air, and it was far too eye-catching. Spread open, it took up half the yard, shining like satin in the winter sun, that raw wild beast smell carrying Elaine over. Word flew through Qingshi. You hear? Lin Xiao killed a black bear. For real? Bears are that easy to take. Dead certain. The skin's airing in his yard, bigger than a bed. I looked from way off, and my knees went weak. My God, is the man even human? He's going to wipe the hills clean of game. The town boiled over. If the radio and the bicycle and the motorcycle had shown off my money, this whole bearskin showed everyone something else, the suffocating force of what I could do. People crowded the mouth of my lane on tiptoe just to glimpse the legendary hide. My little courtyard had become Qingshi's newest attraction, and I sat in the yard drinking tea, soaking up all that attention. That was the effect I wanted. I didn't just want everyone to know I had money. I wanted them to know I'd torn that money out of the jaws of the fiercest beasts in the hills with my own 2 fists and a gun. Anybody jealous, anybody scheming, had better first measure whether they could take a beating like a black bear. At the black market, when I set the fist-sized gallbladder and the 2 paws on Qian Yud's counter, his eyes about fell out of his head. "Oh, my lord," he said, voice shaking. He put on his reading glasses, lifted the gallbladder carefully, held it to the light, his face flushed with excitement. Top-grade purple gold gall. This comes only off a full-grown black bear, 300 pounds and up. He switched to calling me sir on the spot, reverent as a man meeting his savior. "Sir, name your price for this." "I'm not selling." It dropped him from heaven to hell. "What? Not selling?" "Not to you," I said slow. "I want you to take it to the biggest pharmacy in the provincial capital and sell it to someone who can pay. Split it 3 and 7. You take 3, I take 7. He froze. Then his eyes blazed with joy. He understood. I wasn't bothering with the little puddle of Qingshi anymore. I was taking my business to the capital, and he was the agent I'd picked. Not just a deal, a huge favor and a huge opening. "Sir, leave it to me," he said, thumping his chest. 3 days, no 2, and I'll have it handled. I know the roads to the capital. I nodded, satisfied. I needed a bigger stage, and Qian Yud was my first feeler reaching toward the capital. At Yejia village, when Yilan came home with the skin and paws, the whole place went up. When they heard the bear had been one shot from Lin Xiao, and that he'd given most of the haul to his new student, the looks aimed at her were thick with envy. Her father, the lame old hunter, wept with joy. He stroked the thick hide. I'd cut him a piece, looked at the miracle medicine, and said, lips trembling, "We've met a benefactor. Lan, you study hard under your master. This is a blessing from heaven." "I know, Dad." She nodded hard, shaved a little powder off the fungus the way I'd taught her, mixed it into his medicine, and gave it to him. In a single night, the miracle happened. The next morning, the leg that had hurt for years and ached in every damp spell didn't hurt at all. There was even strength in it again. "It's a miracle," the old hunter said, tears streaming. Your master is truly a divine man." Watching her father's leg mend, her worship and gratitude toward me went past all bounds. She knew she could never repay the debt in this life. The only way, maybe, was, and at the thought of that way her face went red. Back in Qingshi, the bearskin stir died down, and life settled into its warm, well-fed routine. One day I came home from town with an oil paper bundle. "No cooking today, we eat out," I announced, smiling. Inside were braised pork knuckle and roast chicken fresh from the state restaurant. We were about to start when a knock came at the gate. I opened it to Yilan. Today she wasn't in the tight hunting coat but a new blue cloth outfit, her short hair carefully combed, less wild, more like a shy young girl. A basket in her hands, a flush on her face. "Master," she said, "what brings you?" I was a little surprised. "My dad's leg is much better. He had me bring you some of our home-cured pork. To thank you." Her voice was thin as a mosquito's. "Come in." I stepped aside. When she walked into the courtyard she'd only dreamed of, and saw the 2 impossibly pretty women inside, and a table of dishes she'd never laid eyes on. She went so nervous she didn't know where to put her hands. And this is? Qin Muxue eyed the spirited stranger, a touch of appraisal in her look. My new student, Yilan, I said. Lan, this is Sister Qin and Sister Bai, your teacher's wives. Hello, ma'am. Yilan got out red-faced. That word, teacher's wives, stopped both women cold. They traded a glance, and in each other's eyes saw the same thing, a wry helplessness and understanding. Well now, the man goes hunting and comes back not just with a bear, but with a flower of a girl student too. This household was expanding awfully fast. Yilan's arrival didn't cause any storm. At the table, she ate white rice and braised knuckle for the first time in her life, and nearly swallowed her tongue over it. Watching the heavenly way her master's family lived, her worship deepened. After, she knew enough to take her leave. When she'd gone, Qin Muxue looked at me with a half-smile. Some hunter you are? One trip out, and you come back with a bear and a flower of a girl student. Quite the skill set. Bai Xiaozhu pressed her lips over a smile, her eyes saying plenty. Ahem. I cleared my throat and said it dead serious. Talent's hard to find. Talent's hard to find. Joking aside, Qin Muxue's face turned serious fast. She lowered her voice, worried. Lin Xiao, I have to warn you. Your life right now is far too conspicuous. One Bai Xiaozhu we could explain. Now there's Yilan and me too, student in name or not. Somebody green with envy could make something of it and pin a lifestyle problem on you. In these years, once that label sticks, it never comes off. It was exactly what I'd been turning over. I looked at her worried face, and Bai Xiaozhu's beside her, and smiled, confident and a little mysterious. I'd worked out the answer long since. That label? Relax. Soon enough, people will be falling over each other to peel it off us and pin a glorious one on instead. Early the next morning, for once I didn't go up the mountain. I got on my flashy three-wheeler and rode the 20 li back to Kaoshan. The iron beast rolling into the village set the whole place buzzing. I paid them no mind and drove straight to the village head's door. Captain Zhao, you home? Zhao Jiangwo came out, saw the motorcycle and me with my unmistakable air, and started, then hurried over all smiles. Well, Lin Xiao, what wind blew a busy man like you back? Come in, sit. Inside, I didn't waste words. I hauled a heavy burlap sack off the bike and dropped it at his feet with a thud. Captain Zhao, I went up the hills a few days back, got lucky, ran into something big. You're the head of our village, working yourself to the bone, and it's near New Year. You ought to build yourself up. A small token. I opened the sack. Zhao Jiangwo and his wife, who'd come out at the sound, both sucked in a breath. Inside was half a side of boar, fat dripping, white fatback, red lean, easily over 100 pounds. In a year as hungry as that one, even a scrap of fat could drive a person mad with envy. And here I dropped 100+ pounds of meat in his house, like a sack of potatoes. His wife stared, throat working, near to drooling. This, Lin Xiao, this is too much. I couldn't, he said, while his eyes stayed glued to the meat. Captain Zhao, no need to stand on ceremony with me. I steered it to the point. This meets my respects to you. But I did come about one small thing. I'd like the village head's help. Say it. Anything old Zhao can do, no question, he said, thumping his chest. With half a side of boar under him, he looked on me fonder than his own father. It's like this, I said easy. You know my hunting's passable. The country's calling for the old to pass skills to the young, and I'd like to do my bit for the village, train up some new blood. I shifted. That Yilan girl from Yejia village, she's a good seed, real hunting talent. I want to take her on and train her properly. But I can't have her running to town every day. It's not practical. So I'd like you, as village head, to write a certificate. Say that, answering the commune's call to pass skills along, the Kaoshan Production Brigade is sending outstanding poor peasant youth comrade, Yilan, to me for hunting technique study. I'll cover her room and board the whole time. My contribution to the village's training of talent. Zhao Jiangwo was a sharp old fox. He caught my meaning at once. Study? Training talent? This was about keeping a pretty girl student in the house with full official cover. With anyone else, he'd have waited even hungry for the meat. But this was Lin Xiao, a walking god of wealth who tossed out 100 pounds of pork as a hello gift. Cross him? You'd have to be mad. And my words were airtight. All for the collective, all for training talent, politically spotless. Writing the certificate was reasonable and right, and nobody could say a word against it. His abacus clicked away. This wasn't just half a side of pork. This was latching onto a strong arm. Stay tight with Lin Xiao, and there'd be respects every holiday. And his own seat as village head would only get steadier. He slapped his thigh, beaming. That's nothing at all. Lin Xiao, your consciousness is so high. Heart with the collective, selfless devotion. On behalf of all Kaoshan, I thank you. He got out paper and brush, drafted the letter himself, stamped it with the bright red official seal, more eager than if it were his own business. And when he'd finished, he wasn't done. He piled on more. Lin Xiao, from now on your house is Kaoshan's talent training base in town. Your growing reserve strength for our village, a great service. If there's ever any gossip, any wagging tongues, you rest easy. I'll be the first to shut it down. Anyone gives you grief, they're giving Zhao Jiangwo grief. That was a stone in my chest, settled. I smiled. Half a side of boar had bought Zhao Jiangwo's most loyal devotion. From then on, he was the perfect tool for making my household official. However many girl students or trainees I took on after, a word to Zhao and a little something, and a red-stamped letter of introduction would be in my hands at once. Above board, all proper. He handed me the stamped letter with both hands, his face folded into a chrysanthemum of a smile. Lin Xiao, how's this? Want me to write it in more detail? It's enough. I tucked it away, satisfied. But I made no move to leave. I picked up my tea and sipped slow. His heart skipped. This wasn't over. He felt me out. Lin Xiao, you've got more instructions? Instructions, no. I set the cup down, smiling. I just figure, if we're setting up this training base, it ought to have a proper structure. Can't only have the trainees doing the work. We should solve their worries too, right? Right, you're right. He nodded, like a schoolboy hanging on the lecture. See, I went on. My courtyard. It's just me, one grown man, with 2 children. A lot of things are awkward. When trainees come, somebody's got to wash and cook, run the logistics, so they can study in peace. I shifted, and my eyes went earnest. That comrade by Xiuzhu in town. You know her, a woman who's had it hard, but diligent, quick-handed. I was thinking, could you also put out a certificate in the village's name for her? Say the Kaoshan Brigade is dispatching comrade by Xiuzhu to the Lin Xiao Hunting Technique Study Group as logistics and living manager, in charge of the trainees' meals and daily care. Her wages I'll count on myself, solving employment for one of the village's hardship cases. He sat there blinking. The man was a marvel. Lin Xiao had dressed up taking on a student in fine words, and folded the widow at home neatly into the bargain too. Logistics and living manager. What a title! How upright it sounded. How impeccable. This wasn't courting anybody. This was an advanced individual leading trainees and support staff in a production and combat group. His admiration for me went past words. No problem. No problem at all. He slapped his thigh, more worked up than before. Lin Xiao, your consciousness is so high. Passing on skills and solving employment for a hardship case besides. Rest easy. I'll write it now. I'll praise you over the brigade loudspeaker too, so the whole village learns from your selfless spirit. And he wrote out the second certificate and stamped it solemnly. By Xiuzhu's official standing, done. Yilan's, done. That left only Qin Muxua. She was a state official, so her standing wasn't in question. But I wanted her tie to this group made proper too, so her daily visits to my house wouldn't draw needless talk. I looked at the excited Zhao Jiangwo and let out a troubled sigh. Pity though. What's wrong, Lin Xiao? Some difficulty. His heart jumped. Not a difficulty exactly, I said, feigning worry. It's just, this study group of mine is a new thing. I'm a rough hunter, I don't understand policy. I'm afraid of doing harm with good intentions and letting down the organization and your trust. I paused, a sly light in my eye. If there were a comrade who understood policy, a cadre with high consciousness, who could come round the group now and then to supervise and guide the work, that would be ideal. Sharpest fox of them all, he caught it instantly. That official who came to my house every day, wasn't she the ready-made political instructor? Lin Xiao wanted to pull her into the group too. His mind reeled. The man's ambition. Not content with a pretty widow and a girl hunter from the village, he was reaching for a state cadre in town. But then, was there any downside for him? None. The tighter Lin Xiao and the official were, the more face he, the village head bound to Lin Xiao, would have before the commune leaders, and the easier his own affairs would go. He thumped his chest and took it all on. Lin Xiao, that's a vital concern. Leave it to me. He dropped his voice, conspiratorial. I'll put in an application to the commune and the housing office in the brigade's name. Say that to better supervise and guide our village's training base and prevent any ideological drift, we earnestly request the organization assign the high consciousness, capable comrade Chin Mushue as the study group's volunteer political instructor. He leaned hard on volunteer. That meant her coming to guide the work was devotion, nobility of character, and nobody could say a word against it. I laughed inside. The man was a genius. I'd barely started the thread, and he'd written the rest of the script. Political instructor. With that title, Chin Mushue could soak in my house every day and still be guiding the work, supervising ideology, above board, proper, only natural. And there it was, my household, made fully official. Living manager by Xiaozhu, study trainee Yilan, political instructor Chin Mushue. A family group with clear roles, legitimate standing, and the heavy flavor of the era, formally established. Captain Zhao. I stood and gripped his hand, the first time I'd done it, my eyes full of gratitude. You've done me a great favor. That half-side of boar, I thought, had been money very well spent. And Zhao Jiangwo was overjoyed too. He knew that from today, he was tied fast to the soaring dragon that was Lin Xiao. Leaving his place, my mood was lighter than ever. With the training base and the political instructor as my two gold-lettered signs, my household had pulled on an iron shirt nobody would dare touch. I rode back to town humming and told Chin Mushue and by Xiaozhu the good news. When they'd heard out this maneuver of mine, they couldn't speak for a long while, and finally admitted, half laughing, that when it came to playing the rules, 100 of them put together didn't match my one head. Chin Mushue's cheeks went red as sunset. She'd never imagined she'd somehow become the hunting group's political instructor, a pass tailor-made for her, so she could now be a permanent fixture here, above board. You're shameless, she huffed, swatting me, her eyes full of feeling. With every worry settled, life got sweeter, and time slid into deep winter. Heavy snow sealed the mountains, the whole world wrapped in silver. For ordinary families, it was a hard season. For mine, it was the coziest. A coal stove blazed inside, warm as spring. On the table, by Xiaozhu's stewed bourbon soup steamed. Chin Mushue sat to one side, clumsily knitting the children's sweaters from new yarn. Yilan had moved in for good. In the east wing, days she studied hunting and fighting under me. Evenings she helped by Xiaozhu with chores, like a diligent little maid. The two girls, in thick new padded coats, ran between their three mothers, like happy butterflies, more doted on than ever. The warmth of it filled me with satisfaction. One day after breakfast, I looked out at the snow, and the hunter's blood in me started stirring. Snow stopped. Good time to go up, I announced, standing. Today the group does a group activity. A winter hunt. The three women reacted differently. Yilan was pure excitement, eyes bright as stars. Chin Mushue was curious and a little worried. The snow's so deep up there. Isn't it dangerous? And by Xiaozhu quietly started packing dry food and hot water, backing her man with deeds. Don't worry. With me along, the Black Wind Range is our back garden. I had every confidence. I fitted everyone with thick cold-weather gear and non-slip felt boots. High-grade stuff I'd had Qianyu'd bring from the capital, far better than anything the town co-op sold. Then I got on the three-wheeler and, to the neighbors' envious eyes, carried three beauties off toward the Black Wind Range. Winter there had its own beauty, a snow-covered sea of forest, dead silent, but for the engine echoing through the valleys. I parked at the foot, and we went up on foot. In a winter hunt, the key is finding tracks, I said as we walked, teaching on the spot. Snow hides everything, but it gives everything away too. Look here. I pointed at a line of plum blossom prints. Sable. Precious fur, but a sly creature. Most hunters never find one. Yilan and Chin Mushue leaned in, fascinated. With Hawkeye, I was master of this snow mountain. No trace any animal left escaped me. Come on, I'll show you how to clean out a rabbit's den. I led them under an ordinary-looking snow slope, had them stand back, and stamped down hard on one spot. The snow caved in, and 7 or 8 fat snow hares, stunned senseless, came tumbling out. Wow! The women cried, like watching a magic trick. Yilan's eyes shone. She knew that simple stamp held a master's read of the terrain, the hare's habits, and exact force. All morning I led them through a hunting feast, smelling the boar herd on the wind, reading a deer's height off the bark scars, dropping a hawk circling 100 meters up with one shot. Roe deer, wild goats, fat pheasants. I took them all with one neat trick after another. The women went from shock to a kind of numbness, just trailing behind, dragging the game on ropes, faces full of pride. When the haul got too heavy to pull, I finally called it, reluctant. All right, that's enough for today. Let's head down. But as we started back, it happened. Yilan, walking in front, slipped, cried out, lost her balance, and went tumbling down a steep snow-covered slope. Yilan. Everyone went white. Below that slope was a field of jagged rocks. A fall down there meant death or a bad break. I moved before I thought, threw the rifle aside, shot off like an arrow, and in the instant before she hit the rocks, caught her into my arms. The force rolled us through the snow several turns before we stopped. Master, she gasped, pale, still shaking. You hurt. I checked, just some scrapes, and let out a breath. And right then a knifing pain shot through my shin. I looked down and my face changed. A sharp rock had laid my shin open to the bone somewhere in the roll, blood welling out, staining the snow around it red. Lin Xiao, Qin Mushiwe, and Bai Xiuzhu came scrambling down the slope, and at the sight of the wound, they went white with fear. Don't panic. I forced the pain down, my voice steady. It's a small cut. I tore off a strip of cloth and bound it rough, but the blood soaked through fast. I knew it was too deep. It had to be treated at the clinic right away, or infection would make it bad. Go. Down the mountain now. Half an hour later, the three-wheeler tore up to the door of the Qingshi clinic. Doctor, doctor, hurry, Qin Mushiwe and Yilan called, helping me off the bike, rushing me in. Su Wanqing was changing a patient's dressing. She looked up at the sound, and at the sight of me, pale, my pant legs soaked with blood, the forceps fell from her hand and clattered to the floor. Brother Lin. She ran over. How did you get hurt this badly? Quick, get him to the surgery. Prep for cleaning and suturing now. The soft, gentle little nurse turned, in that moment, startlingly professional and decisive. Looking at the man who'd once helped her, she had just one thought. Whatever it took, she was going to make him well. In the clinic's bare little surgery, a fine sweat stood out on Su Wanqing's forehead. She picked the grit and bits of grass out of my wound with forceps, one piece at a time, gentle as if she were handling something priceless. I lay on the table with no anesthetic. Pain like this was nothing to me, and I watched the pretty nurse with frank interest. Under the lamp, her long lashes trembled, and her fair cheeks had gone a touching pink from nerves. There was a certain charm to that earnest, tender focus. Brother Lin, this might hurt. Bear with it, she said, a tremor in her voice. It's fine. Go ahead. I smiled, easy as talking about the weather. The calm of it brought up another wave of respect and sympathy in her. Outside, Qin Mushiwe, Bai Xiuzhu, and Yilan paced like ants on a hot pan, Yilan especially, her eyes red, full of blame for herself. The surgery went well, and they put me in the clinic's one private room. The days after, I lived like an emperor. Food brought to my mouth, everything handed to me. Bai Xiuzhu cooked me a different rich soup every day. Qin Mushiwe came to read me the paper, and Yilan turned all her guilt and worship into the most practical thing she could. She all but lived in the room, never an inch from my side, the most loyal of guards. The sight of three women waiting on one man set the whole clinic staff buzzing, their admiration for my skills deepening. The closest contact of all, of course, was with the nurse in charge, Su Wanqing. She changed my dressing herself every day. At first she was shy. Each time she unwound the gauze from my leg and saw the firm muscle, the color would come up in her face. But I'd tell her odd, funny things from the hills or stories she'd never heard, and being learned and easy with her, I could always melt the awkwardness and get her to set her reserve aside. Through all those small contacts, we warmed to each other fast. She found this man was strong but gentle inside, and knew how to respect a woman. And I found the soft-looking little nurse was kind and tough underneath, with a pure love of medicine. One night she had the late shift and came to do my last check. Brother Lin, the wound's healing well. We can take the stitches out tomorrow, she said, tidying the tray, real gladness in her voice. Is that so? Then I owe you a great deal, Nurse Sue. I smiled from the bed. When I'm discharged, let me take you for a proper meal to thank you. I don't want you treating me, she said, blushing, head down, voice thin. It's only my job. And then I reached out and caught her wrist as she went to leave. She gasped and froze, the tray nearly slipping from her hands. Wanqing, I said, my eyes gone deep and gentle in the dim light. You've worked hard for me this while. It's nothing, she said, her heart pounding, not daring to look at me. No, it's not the same. My thumb moved lightly over the back of her hand, and the touch put goose flesh all over her, a numb, fizzing feeling running from her wrist straight to her heart. I don't like owing people. You've taken such care of me. I paused, my voice gone low. How should I repay you? Her mind went blank. A strong wave of him seemed to wrap around her, and her limbs went weak, not a thread of resistance in her. She felt him drawing her in, bit by bit. She even closed her eyes, lashes trembling, waiting for what was coming. But the kiss she expected didn't fall. I only drew her a little closer, then let go of her hand, took something off the bedside cabinet, and pressed it into her palm. A brand new Hero fountain pen, dark green, glowing softly in the lamplight. Her eyes flew open, confused. I noticed the pen you use is always leaking, I said, my smile back to its usual warmth. You're a good nurse. You should write your charts and do your studying with a good pen. Call it your thank you gift, early. I'd done nothing over the line, just shown her care in the most considerate and respectful way. And it struck her harder than a kiss, harder than anything forward could have, because it meant this man had actually watched her, paid attention, respected her work and her hopes. I can't take this. It's too dear, she said, eyes red, trying to refuse. You have to take it, I said, with just enough weight to leave no room. Or this leg of mine won't heal right. The half-joking threat killed the refusal in her throat. She gripped the pen, still warm from my hand, 100 feelings in her, and knew her heart had truly fallen. She said nothing more, only looked at me long, then fled the room, red-faced. I watched her go and smiled. For a girl as pure and full of dreams as Su Wanqing, rushing it would only backfire. Slow water, soft and steady, was the way. I'd planted a seed in her. Now I only had to wait for it to take root. Early the next morning, Qianyud came hurrying in, joy he couldn't hold and all over his face. Sir. He rushed to the bed, his voice shaking. It's done. Your bare gallbladder. It's sold in the capital for a sky-high price. He held up 5 fingers, trembling. 5,000. 5,000 yuan. 5,000. The number went off in the room like thunder, and even I felt a small jolt. I'd known the gall was valuable. I hadn't known it was worth that. What was 5,000 in 1958? An ordinary worker, eating and drinking nothing, would have had to start back in the Qing dynasty to save it. It was enough to buy several courtyards in the capital. Good work. I came back to calm fast and nodded. All thanks to your guidance, sir. Flushed at the praise, he pulled a thick oilcloth packet from his coat and handed it over with both hands. Sir, here's 3,500 in cash. The other 1,500 I turned into coupons of every kind, as you said. And this. He produced a small box from another pocket. Inside lay a watch, a brand new, gleaming Shanghai brand wristwatch. A watch. Qin Muxue and Bai Xiuzhu, just walking in, both cried out. It was rarer than a bicycle or a sewing machine, a top luxury, a mark of standing. In all of Qingshi, maybe only Secretary Li at the commune had one on his wrist. The big boss in the capital sent it special, to thank you for the gall, Qianyud said, fawning. I nodded, pleased. The man got better at his job by the day. I picked up the watch and put it on. The silver face against my weathered, solid wrist suited each other well. Looks good. I asked the 3 of them. It does, they said together, eyes full of little stars. Wearing the Shanghai watch, carrying thousands in cash and a mountain of coupons, I left the clinic in style. Home, the first thing I did was reward the troops. I took out 300 yuan and put it in by Xiuzhu's hands. Xiuzhu, this is yours. From now on you run the household spending. Buy whatever you want, don't pinch. This is too much, she said, the thick stack trembling in her hand. My money is your money. Take it. No argument. Then I gave Qin Muxue 200 and a fistful of coupons. Muxue, you've got the connections in town. You handle our household's diplomacy. Anything rare you spot, anywhere that needs greasing, use this. Tell me when it runs low. The money left her sweet and warm inside. Last, my eyes went to Yi Lan, fidgeting beside them. Lan, I smiled. You guarded me day and night while I was hurt. The biggest credit's yours. Name your reward. Anything I can do, it's yours. Her face went red. She twisted the hem of her clothes, head down. Master, I don't want anything. That won't do. I made my face stern. Service gets rewarded. That's the rule. Looking at my won't take no expression, she bit her lip, at war with herself. Then, like she'd settled something, she jerked her head up, a fire burning in her bright eyes, and looked straight at me. Master, if there really has to be a reward. Her voice shook, but it was clear. I want you. The air froze. Qin Mushiwe and Bai Xiuju's mouths fell open. They'd long since seen the teacher and student were more than that, but they hadn't expected Yilan to come out with it so bold, so plain, in front of everyone. The wild girl never played by the rules. I was caught off guard too, then I laughed out loud. I stood, walked to her, and flicked the tip of her upturned nose. You silly girl. Big talk. Do you know what it means to want me? I do. She met my eyes without flinching, her own full of stubbornness and headlong love. It means that for the rest of my life I'm yours, in life and in death. I'll bear your children. I'll go through fire for you and never once frown. The fierce, honest confession moved everyone there. I looked at this girl who'd throw herself away for love, and something warm and possessive rose in me. I said nothing more, just reached out and pulled her soft frame in hard. All right, you said it. I told it to her ear, leaving no room. From tonight, you move out of the east wing and into my room. She nodded against me with everything she had, a happy, got-her-wish smile on her face. Qin Mushiwe and Bai Xiuju traded a glance, and in each other's eyes saw the same wry, indulgent thing. They knew the household had gained another rightful woman of the house. That night, deep and quiet, red candles flickered in my room. Yilan, bathed in new red silk Qin Mushiwe had loaned her, sat shy at the edge of the bed like a new bride waiting for her husband. I came in, saw the lovely sight of her, and felt my blood start up. I didn't speak, just stepped close and lifted her flushed face. Ready? My voice was low. She didn't answer, just closed her eyes, lashes trembling, and let her stillness say it all. I didn't hesitate any longer. The candles guttered out in the wind, and the rest was left unsaid. The next day, Yilan came to the table glowing, a new softness about her eyes. I looked around at all of them and smiled. Bai Xiuju ran the inside, the logistics. Qin Mushiwe ran the outside, the social side. And Yilan would be my most capable, most loyal partner when I hunted and fought. My household had settled into a stable, harmonious shape. After Yilan formally took her place, the mood in the courtyard shifted in a curious way. Where before there'd been a careful feeling out, now that the three of them had steadied into a fixed arrangement, the whole house gave off a strange, enviable harmony and life. Bai Xiuju stayed the gentle quartermaster, keeping everything in order, her cooking filling the air. Qin Mushiwe became the household's foreign minister and fashion advisor, bringing home new things from work or the co-op, colored cloth, hand cream, even a few novels that had drifted in from the capital. She taught Bai Xiuju and Yilan their characters, and the three of them puzzled out smarter clothes on the sewing machine together. And Yilan became my shadow. Mornings, when I did my forms in the yard, she'd learn alongside me, dead serious about every move. Sometimes I took her into the hills, the two of us moving through the snow forest in easy step, like a well-matched pair of wolves. I found and dropped the big game. She cleaned up the small, fast things with that uncanny bow of hers. Together we were faster than I'd ever been alone. Time flew, and the year's end came near. One day, looking out at another heavy snowfall, I said to Yilan, reading by lamplight under Qin Mushiwe's tutoring, "Lan, come up the mountain with me tomorrow. I'll show you how to take something good." "What good thing, master?" She set the book down, curious. "Firefox." A glint came into my eye. "No, better than Firefox. Sable." "Sable?" Not just Yilan. Qin Mushiwe and Bai Xiuju cried out too. The king of furs. One good sable pelt, they said, could fetch a bicycle in the capital, and even then you couldn't find them for sale. "Master, sable come and go like ghosts, and they burrow in the snow. They're so hard to find," Yilan worried.